Hello and welcome to the Dancing Geek podcast. My name is James, also known online as the Dancing Geek, and this is my podcast. Fairly self-evident in the name there, really. So today, knitting wise, I have a finished object, which is not quite finished, and 2 whips still. So yeah, I didn't quite manage my self-set challenge of getting them all out of the way, but there is a reason for that, and I will show you part of the reason at some point in the podcast. Probably at the end. I'll probably stick it in at the end because I've taken a little bit of extra video. Okay, so the first one to start with is the Endurance Scarf now rather than shawl, because the designer Ellie from FO and Die got in touch and said okay, she's rejigged the yardages a little bit and to sort of look at the pattern again and see which one your yardage suits. And I kind of had a look and I went, right, okay, so I've got fingering weight yarn and I've only got one skein, so it's going to have to be the scarf rather than the shawl. Yes, because it's sort of scarfish rather than shawlish. What that really means is it's tapered, so it's thin at the end and wider in the middle and then thin at the other end, but it's not so wide as to be classed as a shawl really. It's kind of gets to about as wide as a scarf would be, kind of thing. So it's kind of like a tapered scarf, hence scarf. So I've finished the test knit for Ellie, and the pattern is getting ready to be published. I don't know exactly when, but the murmurings seem to be sort of not too long away, which is cool. The yarn that I've done it in, just as a reminder, or for anyone that's catching this episode for the first time, hi guys, is Socks That Rock. There we go. So this is Blue Moon Fibre Art Socks That Rock, and it is a rare gem mill end. So that's the only colourway information is rare gem, which just means it's sort of a one of a kind even. But if you have a look, you can see it's got kind of, I'd say 3 shades of blue in there, and then it's kind of like a dirty peach colour almost. It doesn't get as bright as orange, except maybe a sort of a dirty orange in very few spots. So it's a slightly tricky colour to decide what it is in there with it, and then obviously some spots of sort of a creamy greyish white. And yeah, so I said it's a finished object because it's off the needles. However, I do have ends. I do have this weird end in the middle. The reason for that is because, having tried to bind off, realised I couldn't, got undone the binding off, unpicked one row, gone to bind off again. I used a nice loose bind off because I was worried, and someone recommended doing yarn overs during the bind off. But of course, what I didn't count on was the fact that that would mean I would run out again. And I was on the VKN and Ellie was there, and it was like, I've got this much left. And she was like, just go to the other end and just crochet them. As in, you take 2 loops first, crochet one over the other, and then pick a loop, crochet, pick up a loop, crochet, pick up. If you have done crochet, you'll kind of get how that works. You're basically just chaining up the side, which is really kind of what a bind off is, but that's a tight bind off because it's small stitches. Not even looser stitches for binding off. It's just your normal size knit stitches, so that's quite a tight edge. If you contrast it to the cast on edge, you can see the bottom stretches, woo, way more than the top does. The top is stretched fully out, when it lays flat. But the fact it can lay flat means it's fine. It's not like it's puckering or anything. But obviously I go to the other side of that and doing, 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 loads more give. But it's fine because it's kind of just really the corner. So if I was to wear it over my lovely cowl that I'm wearing today with my little hurdy pin, I thought, oh, I'll wear this cowl because I showed it in one of the early episodes when I was doing sort of historic FOs. And then I sort of was trying to work out my outfit because I do actually think about my outfit for the podcast. Spent ages deciding what I'm going to do with all of this. My bottom half doesn't matter. I'm wearing slippers because, you know, you can't see my feet. But I will go out then with this evening. In fact, there's going to be an interruption halfway through today's podcast because I've left it a bit too late today. And I'm going to be going out halfway through the podcast, coming back and then recording the second half. So I may be slightly more bedraggled and or tired looking in the second half of this podcast following my Pilates class this evening. But yeah, so if I was to put it on, you can imagine that it's already gone. Yeah, and then there's all of this that I could wrap around. So this is me wearing it kind of like a scarf. Like that. You'd have no idea that that one corner was tightly wound, and if I do it more shawl-like and kind of just drape it slightly, and maybe, I don't know, something a bit kind of over the shoulder look like that. Again, it doesn't impact. So that is a cunning save if you ever run out of yarn, particularly on what is a very, 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 very long bind off. It's not the longest one in existence, but it's measured in the hundreds of stitches, and well, let's just say the pattern's name is Endurance, and it's certainly not a slog to knit. It's a pleasure. In the sense that I didn't at any point, even though I had to rip out half of it because of pattern issues or pattern translating issues, pattern writing issues. There was a bit missing from the pattern and I had to rip out half of it. I didn't really notice it. I let it sit for a few days, as I said before, and then I picked it up and just got on with it, and it's just a really nice, easy knit. What I do, and I do this in other patterns as well, is sometimes patterns will say knit to so many stitches before the last turn if they're doing short rows, wrap and turn, da-da-da-da. Well, I hate the whole kind of knit so far, oh, how many have I done? Oh, no, there's a bit further to go, knit a few more, check again, oh, no, check again. That does my head in. I just want to be able to knit. Either in pattern or plain, whatever is fine, but I just want to get on with it and have the garment, the item, tell me when to stop. So what I do is, after I've done a short row turn, I look at the next row, and usually it's repeated in the pattern, so you can't realise after the first row, you know how many stitches before the next wrap, how many stitches before the last wrap you're supposed to stop and wrap and turn. But what I do is I look for that number, and then as I'm knitting away from my last wrap, I will count that many stitches and then put in a place marker. Because it's easier to count stitches as you're knitting them than to count down stitches. Particularly when the number you've got is ever changing. You know, to knit up to so many before the wrap is awkward, whereas to just count X number of stitches after you've wrapped is easy. I slip on a stitch marker and then once I've done that twice, then my stitch markers are always there for me. So once I've placed both stitch markers, I just knit to the stitch marker, take it out, wrap and turn it, and then knit however many, slip the stitch marker back on. So you have to kind of pause the stitch marker in your hand or on the chair or whatever for X stitches. And then you slip it back on and zzzt to the next one. And that made the whole thing very, very whizzy. And it is beautiful texturing with little cables on the edge. Now, the other thing I haven't done is I haven't blocked it yet. I was going to try and block it today, and then my procrastination, which is why I'm recording this a bit later than I usually do, kicked in around this as well, so I didn't block. I wouldn't. Oh, dearie me, words. What I was going to say is I was going to go and wash this as I was getting ready for the podcast, and then I thought, oh wait, no, because if I do that, it'll be absolutely soaking wet, and I won't be able to easily show it to you guys. So I thought I should just leave it in its raw form. It's finished until completed knitting form. Which, if you think about WIPs being works in progress and FOs being finished objects, then you might not be too surprised if you know Dave at all from FO and I to know that that was his term for things that haven't been had their ends woven in and been blocked and that kind of thing. I've just finished until completed knitting. So yeah, that is this lovely shawl, and obviously when it goes live I'll give you guys a shout out so you can go and check it out, but you can obviously go and find Ellie's other patterns on Ravelry now, and yeah, I look forward to getting this blocked and woven in and working out what to do with the, because that's the only thing actually I was going to mention. Which end was it now? I've lost which end I did it on. Here we go. There. I knew there was something else, which is why I was kind of hesitating a bit. So this is the edge where I've got the tight bind off from just crocheting the loops together. And so what's happened here is basically the end of the yarn had sort of 6 inches or something left of the yarn, and I've just at the moment done a slip knot through the last of the bind offs, which are looping coming across this way, and the last of the crochet loops, which are coming off this way. So you've got 2 loops together. So I stuck a slip knot through those, but I haven't decided quite what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to try and do something a bit sort of fancy to try and get it to hold together. I might do something that look a bit like a knit 2 together, or pull them both down around the back and knit them with one of the loops a couple of rows down at the back, because obviously you've got these 2 loops, and so there's lots of excess. Normally they lay flat when you bind off because you're constantly wrapping around the next one, and the length of the loop has somewhere to go. Well, here they don't. They're both butting up against each other, so I'm thinking fold them over each other, so that's like the knit 2 together kind of style. And either, I don't think it would work to fold it at the front, I think that would look too weird, so I'll probably fold it at the back, and therefore if you imagine the loops pointing downwards will come down to, you know, maybe a row or 2 down, maybe 3 to kind of keep it taut, and then if I knit through that back loop, that will then I can just turn that knit stitch into a knot by just pulling the thread through and pulling it taut, and that will kind of hopefully pull things a bit together, because you can see if I come in close there's a little bit of a gap between those 2 at the moment, because it's literally just a knit stitch holding those 2, but that blue there is my last crocheted loop, and the sort of orangey peachy colour there is the last of the others, so they're kind of hooked round each other at the moment a little bit. So I'm going to have a play with that. That's the only thing I don't know quite so much what to do with it, but I will have a play and disguise it and hide it and weave all the ends in and tuck it all away, and it'll be like magic, and no one will be able to see it because I have to hold it right up close to the camera and point at it for you guys to be able to see it. So, you know, no one's going to see it on your average day-to-day stuff. So again, that's the Endurance Shawl by Elspeth Campbell. That's Ellie's full name. And she's Goth Heart on Ravelry, all one word. So if you want to go and hunt her out, either under her name or her Ravelry username, you can do that. And check out her other patterns in the meantime. And today's hot chocolate is in my piglet mug. It's a little bit smaller, but like I said, I'm doing it in 2 halves, so I know I've only got a limited amount of time, so I don't want a super huge. I was going to say, so I'm just getting my clock to turn back on. It turned itself off on my phone. I don't need a super huge hot chocolate because I'm only doing any lasting for a shorter amount of time. Before I come back and record the rest of the podcast, it's not like the podcast is going to be any shorter. So, I had hoped that the next two projects would have been FOs, but other things, other exciting, fun things, non-knitting related, just life things, happened, which meant I didn't get as much knitting time. However, they are the MCALs, and I'm feeling lazy today, so I'm not going to do the pointy fingers and tell you when you can skip ahead. I'm just going to say skip about 10 minutes ahead, and you guys can work it out for yourselves. Because do you know what? I'm not actually convinced anybody skips ahead. I think I just do a pointy fingers at a numbers thing, and nobody cares. Because nobody said, "Oh, thank you for not spoiling it," and lots of people have said, "Oh, I like those shawls," which means they're just watching it. So I'm going with that one. If you don't want it spoiled, then skip 10 minutes ahead. But the patterns are both out fully now. You can see finished objects all over the place on Ravelry. And yeah, you know, so it's not really a mystery knit-along anymore. I'm just behind. I will get them both finished and uploaded onto the forums to enter as my knit-along finished objects kind of things. With Josh's, it actually makes a difference. He puts a deadline on it. I think it's the 11th of December. So even if you haven't made it yet, you could then go and have a look, and if you like it, you could still enter the mystery knit-along part of it, just not the mystery part of it, and so long as you make it by the 11th of December. And then you get entered to win a prize. I think there's a prize for one person, and then everybody gets like discounts for the next MCAL maybe, or something like that. Go watch his podcast. Sword of a Knitter. Sword being the sharp pointy thing that people used to stab each other with. I did consider getting out some long pieces of scrap yarn and threading it onto it so I could lay it out and show you it a bit more easily. And then I realised that was a bit much like hard work as well. So along with my procrastination, I'm clearly having a lazy day, which is going to make Pilates interesting this evening. But one of the bonuses of going along to Pilates is that the teacher is my friend. And an ex-professional dancer as well. So she knows what I'm capable of, and she knows how to kick me up the butt. So you never know, the second half of this podcast might be super energised because I come back from Pilates and I'm all like, yeah! I've done exercise and moved and stuff and not just been sat down all day. So there's not really a massive amount to show you on this. Have I ever got to, where have I got to? I think, I'm just going to count a second, because I think I've done 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes! I have. So actually I'm ready to cut the thread on this, I think. I shan't do it yet, but yes, I think the next... I've got through sort of the fairly straightforward knitting, and then the next instruction was like, I was like, oh, right, okay, I'm going to have to rewind my yarn and sort myself out a bit. So, yeah, again, that wasn't going to happen, was it? That's where I am, just up to where I'm at the moment. But it's still looking very pretty, and I'm very happy with it. So here it is. And yeah, if you've seen it before, you'll realise basically all I've done is just finished off this last little green section at the bottom. It's now 8 rows long instead of, I think, 4. So I really haven't done a massive amount, but I still think it's pretty enough to show off, because at least this way you might see this and go, ooh, which I know some people have done because they've let me know, which is awesome. Ooh, I want to make that actually. That looks really nice, and gone and got the pattern. So you guys, 11th of December I think it is. that you've got to finish the project, and then you can be part of the knit along and maybe win a prize. So, yeah, there's not a massive amount to say on this, so I shall probably just move along. Move along, move along. Now, I can't remember where I was at with Exploration Station last time, and what I didn't do was use one of Carty's lovely little lobster claw things on my knitting so that I could see where I was last time I recorded. Podcaster fail. Said completely ironically, because whatevs. No expectations, no apologies podcasting. It's all about peeps being peeps, guys. So, yeah, I suspect this is exactly the same place as it was last time I showed you it. Plus, I recorded late last week because of not having a good Wednesday and everything. So, but there's the main body, and then there's the last few striping sections. Hiya! But yeah, I think this isn't sort of new to you at all. Now, what I've really liked on some of the others, and I'm not sure it happens on mine so much, just because I don't think the colours merge particularly, but on others, where they've used, for example, it's really striking when people have used something like red, green and blue, because these last three sections are in two colours, and the two colours are quite densely together. From a distance, you don't see, so for example, red and blue, you see purple. And you don't see red and green, you see brown, and you don't see blue and green, you see turquoise, and things like that. Quick colour combo theory off the top of my head there, whoo! Which is not always guaranteed to be correct, as was very kindly pointed out to me. I did make a few gaffes when I was talking about the prefixes for numbers. So last week I was mentioning about months and said September, October, November, December was 7, 8, 9, 10, which it is. And then I said, it's just like in shapes. And then proceeded to say some weird shape names that aren't real. So thank you for correcting me. I'm sorry, I forgot to write down your name because I just remembered it as I was talking. But yes, it's not a septagon, it's a heptagon. Octagon is correct, then it's nonagon, not novagon, and then decagon is correct. So, and then you get things like dodecahedrons and all that kind of stuff as well, which is three-dimensional shapes. But I think dodecahedron is 12-sided, 12-faced, a 12-faced three-dimensional shape. I could be wrong, because again, I am kind of just talking off the top of my head, and I haven't actually studied mathematics, thank you, for... Do I want to admit that number? Over a decade. So, yes, so thank you for the corrections, and if I've made something up in what I've just been spieling about, then I apologise. But I think that one was right. The other thing I had a few comments on was y'all, which I've compromised with one person. I will only say in a terribly British accent, y'all. Because a bunch of people kind of went, oh, you know, y'all is just a southern thing, and they don't say it above the Mason-Dixon line, which I've had somebody link me to a Wikipedia article, so I now know what the heck a Mason-Dixon line is. And yes, I technically, I kind of knew that in the sense that y'all sounded southern to me. So I don't know what I said last week that made it sound like I thought y'all was just 100% everyone in America uses it. I probably was just saying it was American, and I wasn't specifying that it was Southern American. And partly that's because it was in the context of the lovely ladies from Knitworthy podcast doing a swap with some British English. So obviously they must be from south of the Mason-Dixon line. Maisie-Dixon? Mason... Oh, you see, I forgot the name of it already. I'm going to call it Mason-Dixon, and if I'm wrong, please don't correct me. I will go and check later myself. Allow me a little bit of ignorance. Yeah, and so they use y'all. but there was a few people that it seemed almost, not quite, but almost a little bit offended that I might be suggesting that all Americans said y'all, and I don't think that. So in case anyone else got that impression and was miseducated, I apologise, and there is the correct information. And that whole Mason-Dixon thing is actually quite interesting. There was like a war over there, over that border. And that is the 2 MCALs. So I'm now setting myself the challenge of getting them finished before December, because the date today, and I have to check, is the 26th, Wednesday the 26th of November. So that gives me another 4 days. Now the borders on both of these things are not small, and one of them in particular, somebody did make a comment about saying it was quite involved and took them a long time. So we'll see. I'm trying to think what I've got on over the next few days. Let's just check my calendar. This is my phone I'm looking at. Everything's on my phone. So let's see. I'm out tonight. I'm out tomorrow night. And I'm out on Saturday night. So Sunday. Friday and Sunday. Yeah, I reckon that gives me time. I reckon I've got plenty of time there to do stuff. Next section, stash love. How am I doing for time? Oh, I've got loads of time. Oh, maybe this is going to be a shorter podcast. No! We haven't got to the really long, extended section, which is me yakkering on about community stuff. Stash love. Stash love this week is actually quite small. Now, I did consider getting some more yarns out of my stash, which is just to my left, which is why I'm looking off to the side as I talk about this. As well as, did you know there's a whole thing about being able to read people's eyes? Now, I'm trying to remember it, and I'm looking up to my top left. And when I was trying to remember about the yarns, I was looking up top left when I stopped looking at the yarns. So I think, as you look at me, it's your top right, yeah? I think if someone's looking up to their top left or your top right, so you can just choose to remember it any way you like. That way, on me. They're trying to remember something. However, if I decide to make up a story about an elephant that goes to the woods and meets a deer and is pink and likes balloons, I'm looking up that way. And it's a subconscious thing, so obviously I can change that and think about a shark who likes to go fishing and look up to the left, and I can work and try and remember what I was wearing on the last podcast, which was I didn't wear a hat and I wore my stripy jumper. There. So you can do it, but actually the inclination is to want to look a particular way when you're doing those two functions. There's also some for looking down left and right as well for some reason. It's really interesting why we might do this, I don't know, but it's been documented and is reasonably reliable if the person doesn't seem like they're being very self-conscious. So with kids, it's awesome. You can tell if kids are making stuff up or not by checking which way they look. Are they trying to remember it, or are they just telling you fibs? Very cool. No weird eye tricks this time, guys. Just awesome how to read eyes. That's not creepy, okay? I had a few comments that the last week one was creepy, sorry. One person thought it was awesome and wanted to learn it, which is what I was hoping would happen. But 2 people said it was creepy, and I'm like, oh, out of 3 comments, 2/3 are kind of going, no, James, that was just creepy. Please don't do that again. So, anyway. What I said in one reply was, I will warn you first if I go to do it. Yeah, so I was thinking about getting some more yarns out, but they're all in plastic bags, and I'm feeling lazy today. Yeah, and that's a definite theme for today, so it's not going to happen. I was thinking I could pause the recording and drag some out, and then immediately just went, oh, you know, you know when you just can't. It's just not going to happen. So instead, my stash love section is going to be very small, and it's just going to be a big thank you to Valerie. I'm getting my notes here. Valerie, thank you very much. Valerie is, excuse me, that's the hot chocolate repeating on me. MVA5493. I do wonder if those kinds of Ravelry names are literally someone mashing the keyboard, or if it has some kind of significance, because then it's like, and there's a V in there, so it could be like Miss Valerie something. And maybe 5493 is like your parents were born in 54 and you were born in 93. I'm guessing that's not the case. But it'd be pretty mean to say maybe you were 54 in 1993. I don't actually know how old Valerie is at all. I did have somebody write to me recently, Marie, hi Marie, who told me that she's 73. And I was like, wow, I think now I can officially say that my podcast watchers go from 3 to 73. Because I'm pretty sure Jen, she's not the only one that's written to say that her kids watch. But Jen did say that her kids watch. I can't remember what ages she said her kids were. But I'm pretty sure I go from 3 to 73, which is kind of awesome, because I'm all about the inclusivity. Another side tangent, the dance work that I was doing last before I kind of went on hiatus with that for a bit was all about community-driven, inclusive projects. And we had people ranging from about, I think the youngest was, well, on one of the projects, the youngest was about 6. I think. He's kind of just small and childlike, and at that point he could be anywhere between 2 and 8, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. In fact, really anywhere up to about 20, and I'm like, baby. I don't know, just baby. I'm awful at guessing people's ages. But up to sort of 80 something. So that was pretty cool. So to think that there's people from 3 to 73 watching my podcast is awesome! Do you beat that? Are you younger than 3 or older than 73? Then shout out, let me know. But yes, anyway. Hi Marie, thanks for writing. But this is a big thank you to Valerie, MVA5493, who was very nice and just randomly sent me a pattern. It's one of Josh's. So she knew that I'd like it, which is always a win. And she sent me the Fatal Wound shawl, which as I was writing it down, I went, oh, that's like Fatal Wound. And it was funnier in my head than it is when I said it out loud, so I'll just move on. But yes, thank you very much, Valerie, for that pattern. And that will go in my queue as something else to be made. I think once I finish these shawls and then some Christmas knitting, I think my New Year knitting, other than the cowl, more on that later, will be a jumper or a sweater if you prefer, or a pullover. I've had a few, not my sort of stripy spring one, that one's going to keep getting worked on as and when, but I've had a few that patterns sort of sitting around, and there's one, I think it's called Corridon or Corridor, something like the Corridor. No, it's not. Do you know what? I'll just have a quick look. Oh no, it's over on my desk somewhere. I've moved it because I showed you it before. I think I got it out for some reason. Oh, for a VKN, I was showing people some of the patterns I had in my queue for the VKN, but it's something like that. It's in my queue if you're interested, and I think I might knit that because I've had it hanging around for a while, and that's one that I want to make myself. I haven't worked out what yarns I'm going to use for that. They're out of my stash. I might end up having to dye some of my white BFL that I got a sweater quantity of, but that'll be fun because I've not tried dyeing yet. So yeah, that was my stash. Thank you very much for my stash enhancement, Valerie. That's much appreciated. And other than that, it's been a quiet week. So, checks clock. I haven't had to do that in a while, but I have to make sure that I round things up nicely in order to be ready to go out. And, oh, excuse me. Oh, that's one of my hairs. You can tell because it's like this long. And I was kind of thinking about, dinner. I've had some chocolate and a hot chocolate since... well, I had sort of a ham roll about 4 o'clock-ish, and then Pilates is at 7. So I will be hungry by the time I get home, and I don't think my other half's going to get home in time for us to eat before I go. Because sometimes, bless him, he gets held back at work. Half the time, it's his own choice to handle the workload. And I do not envy him. He does a job that is underappreciated and overworked. And he's not the only person in that scenario. Basically, anybody that works in that sector is underpaid, undervalued, overworked. A bit like dance, really. Okay, so I've got time. I can talk a little bit about a question I got. So, Googly Eyes Yarn, who is Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Got in touch and she wrote to me. She wrote me a couple of messages actually, which is really nice. And some of them really touched me, and I've been writing to her back about that. So thank you, Sandra. I'll say it in here as well on the podcast. I won't talk about exactly what it was because it's personal and private stuff. Nothing particularly sensitive or anything, just stuff that I wouldn't discuss in public without having cleared it first. And but one of the things she talked about was plant-based yarns, and she said, could I do something about plant-based yarns? And I kind of thought, well, what do I know about plant-based yarns? And there's only two that really come to mind straight away. The obvious ones are cotton and bamboo. Now I know there are others that are like bamboo from other plants, but I'll talk about cotton and bamboo generally because I couldn't remember the names of some of the other ones. But there's sort of two main camps. So cotton falls under the natural sort of plant fibre ready to be used as a fibre. So the cotton plant, you harvest the heads of the cotton plant, don't you? And then that gets spun, basically. I mean, there's probably all kinds of treatment and what have you that has to happen to it, but the plant itself produces something that can be made into a fibre directly. Whereas bamboo, and this is also true for various other plants that can get turned into yarns. I'm thinking like sunflower or something, but it's something where it was really interesting. Like, I remember a conversation somebody had about, oh, is it like the plants, the petals or something that are getting used, or is it the stalks? And as with bamboo, it's the stalks because it's the cellulose in those plant fibres that gets converted into something like a viscous material. So you'll often see bamboo brackets viscous or something like that. And that's because bamboo itself, it's not, I don't think they're sort of finely shredding the bamboo and then just be spinning thin bits of bamboo. I think they chemically alter it. Certainly the ones that say viscous, it's chemically altered. I think that's always the case. I'm not an expert, and it's not something I've done a lot of research on. And again, I did kind of consider doing a bit of homework before talking about it in this episode, and I was like, nope, not going to happen today. So if I get inspired to do some research on it, then I'll maybe come back to it. Because the science of how you sort of make viscous from cellulose and what other kinds of materials plant might be made from plants and so on is quite interesting. But obviously you get things like nylon and acrylic. Well, they're similar in the sense that they're artificial, but they're made from chemicals that are usually petroleum-based or derived from a chemical process rather than harvesting a plant and then processing that plant in some way. So there's still some chemical involvement, and I would suspect there's an environmental impact as a result of that. But then everything has an environmental impact. The question is whether it's sustainable, whether it's well managed, etc. So yeah, in terms of the first thing that comes off my mind when thinking about plant-based yarns, that's the difference, is cotton. And I don't know of any others that are immediately just available from the plant. Everything like silk and all your wools and what have you, they're all sort of animal-based, really. I mean, silk obviously isn't animal hair or fur. Silk is the cocoon filament that the silkworm uses to make its cocoons. It's a bit sort of unpleasant to think about how they go about procuring the silk, because in order to get nice long silk threads you have to loosen the fibres before the worm's hatched out, I believe. Not nice. And again, I don't know how that's done. Maybe there's a way to do that more humanely. And caterpillars probably don't have as developed a nervous system, but yeesh, no. That's not a nice topic. Let's move along, and maybe somebody who knows more about this can leave information in the comments or tell us about it on their podcast. But in terms of sort of avoiding animal fibres because of allergies, then silk might be less of an issue because it's very different in nature, I would suspect. I don't know, I would suspect. Cotton and bamboo. Bamboo I love, absolutely adore bamboo. I really like bamboo with wool, which obviously isn't a plant-based yarn, but I have seen stuff that's bamboo cotton, and off the top of my head I'm thinking King Cole do a bamboo cotton that I think is just called King Cole Bamboo Cotton. I could be wrong, I haven't done any research for this, but King Cole's pretty readily available basically, certainly in the UK. I don't know about abroad, but if you bought from, if you did a hunt around for King Cole, I think they're fairly easy to get online. Like they're sort of a fairly boggy standard local yarn store type thing, like Sirdar, Rowan, if you want the fancier ones. Now, I think they're all British, so you may be less likely to get them abroad. I really don't know. But if you search bamboo cotton, that exists. That is a blend that exists and isn't completely rare, isn't really bizarre or anything. The other thing that's obviously different is in terms of what it's like to knit with and what it's like to wear. So animal fibres, so you're using sheep, alpaca, goat, all of those things, they're there, they grow them to keep them warm. So by their very nature, they're designed to keep you warm. Whereas cotton and bamboo aren't at all. They're designed to do completely random things. Cotton, I'm guessing, is so that the seeds can be carried off somewhere, a bit like dandelion clocks. I don't know, I'm guessing. Don't quote me on that. I feel a bit like Amy Beth off of The Fat Squirrel Speaks. It's like, I'm making this up, I could be completely wrong. Which she often says as well. She's awesome. If you don't watch her, go watch her. She is amazing. She's hilarious. And she makes awesome bags. And loves apples and apple picking. Oh my god, so much. So, and obviously bamboo isn't designed. It's manufactured just from the cellulose within the plant. And as a result, they are not naturally as warm. Which is great. Sorry, that hot chocolate's still repeating on me. I apologise. I don't think you can hear anything, but it just makes me kind of go every now and again. Oh, sorry, was that a weird eye thing? Sorry. Back from my tangent. So it's not as warm to wear, but obviously that can be a benefit. So if in the summer it's too warm, or in your climate it's too warm to wear hand knits most of the time because you're thinking wool hand knits and they're toasty toasty warm, as I am now toasty warm today because it's cold here, you could knit with cotton. And then I quite like the idea of having like a cotton top of some kind. My crocheted orange one that I showed a while ago and then I haven't worn since because it didn't fit well, and I used US stitches with a UK pattern, and so I'd had to adjust my gauge massively, and I did the seams too tight and it just all went a bit wrong, so I put it to one side and I will maybe try and rescue it another time. But I kind of think, wow, that was a bit too much orange. I kind of got excited, and then by the end of it I was like, oh dear. So maybe that's one to go at the bottom of the pile for a while. And actually it's surprisingly warm because it's very heavy, because I did very bulky stitches, because I did more loops per stitch than I was meant to. I think that's the way around it was. Yes. Yeah, anyway. So I have done some stuff in cotton. I'm thinking more like maybe having some kind of like a sort of an easy pullover. So a bit like the 4-ply. I'm pointing up there. You can't see what I'm pointing at, but that's where the project is on the wall by the camera. Pointing up at that because, oh geez, my tangents are really blowing my mind today. That's where my 4-ply wool jumper is, which is going to be my short sleeve. I'm kind of gesturing, and anything below my shoulders you can't see, so as my hands are wafting around here, you can't see them. My short sleeve jumper. Maybe I need to tilt the camera down a bit at some point. It was just really convenient. I just literally have it on the shelf rather than on the little leg thing anymore because it was just the right height. But maybe I need to play with that some more. Meh. Or I can just waft my hands around and you can just get flash of my fingers, and that's fine by me. So that's my short sleeve sort of beach jumper, which actually would have been really good for wearing around the house today, because I was thinking a jumper would have been too warm earlier when I was moving about and stuff, but and a shawl would be too dangly whilst I'm doing stuff, so like a little short sleeve jumper would have been quite nice. Right. Cotton. Knitting with cotton. So it is quite a good summery yarn, and obviously a cotton mix is usually lighter. Am I right in saying cotton is drapier? Maybe, but to be honest, gauge I think has a lot more to do with drape than material. Although I know linen, linen. There we go, isn't linen plant-based? And that's really drapey, because I've seen linen blends and you hold up like, I'm looking over there but I don't see, oh I've got one that's kind of loose. Minimal rattling, there we go, I can get it out without making lots of noise. So you hold up a normal skein yarn, you can hold it like that and it sort of stands vertical. This is just wool, so it's a bit wobbly but it's fine. If you had a linen blend, it would automatically just go because it's so floppy. So you can get linen blends of stuff. I don't know anything really about linen. I've not played with it, I've not knit with it. But I know that would make it very drapey. I think bamboo's supposed to be quite drapey, cotton's supposed to be quite drapey. I think they're quite sort of relaxed fibres, whereas maybe the animal fibres have a bit more robust a fibre, for whatever reason. I'm kind of talking off the top of my head a little bit now. But that's fine, right? I'm just trying to drag out all the things I know about cotton and stuff. Yeah, cotton blends. The thing I would say about cotton is it's not... Oh yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. It's not stretchy at all. It's like knitting with string, basically. So anything knit tight is really, really difficult. So you'll want to go down a needle size and loosen your gauge if you're a tight knitter. And generally you don't want to be knitting like toys, because that's got to be really tightly knit anyway. At least that's what everyone told me from last week's podcast. So that would just be hellish trying to knit that with cotton. And so it is harder work on the hands, a bit like knitting toys. Somebody was saying, you know, because it's tighter, it uses your muscles differently, knitting a toy nice and tight. And the same is true of cotton. I did knit with cotton, I knit a little hat. I didn't like how it looked or fit me afterwards, but it's in my project page down near the bottom as an ugh. I've never worn it. I tried sewing some knitting elastic thread into the hem to get it to contract a bit more, because obviously cotton doesn't do that really either. It had some ribbing around the edge, it wasn't much. But cotton doesn't have that springy nature that yarn does, so the ribbing didn't really contract. But no, it went from being just flat down and looking weird to grabbing my head too much and looking weird, and I couldn't get this kind of somewhere in between. And I was like, nope, done, bored now, move on. The only stuff with bamboo that I've knit has always been a bamboo... Ooh, now, has it? What about my bamboo socks? They might have been bamboo acrylic, which would be an option as well. And they're really nice, and they're very tough, which I suppose you'd expect from something like a bamboo acrylic mix, but they don't pill or anything. So they've got nylon in. I can't remember the blend. I'll have to make a note. Oh, I've not brought a pen over. Oh, there's one up here. There we go. I'm next to all of my stuff. It's great. So I need to make a note to include bamboo socks in my show notes. so that I can be sure to let you guys know in the show notes below what the actual blend on those bamboo socks is. But that might be another option, something like bamboo with acrylic or nylon, and cotton with, and linen with, and I think there's cotton linen blends and stuff as well. So there's lots of options, and if you haven't tried them, try them. Get in there, have a bash. They are different. So if you're not, I would say, if you've not knit with it before, start with a pattern, and this would be true of all yarns you've not played with. Start with a pattern that was designed on that kind of yarn. Because the whole way that it fits and drapes and goes together and all of that will change if you change the kind of yarn it's made from. So that just seems like a sort of a sensible suggestion, really. Okay, I think that's enough waffling about that. That's a good quarter of an hour of plant-based yarn talk. If you guys have any suggestions, ideas about that, please share them. Now, who asked? They asked me in Ravelry. So let's aim for in the Ravelry group, if you would be so kind, rather than in the YouTube comments. And then we've got one place that I know the person sees to see those. So that'd be awesome. So in the Ravelry thread for episode 13, in the comments there, any notes on that. And whilst I'm thinking about it, yes, this is episode 13. I don't do suspicion. Suspicion? No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Black cats and walking under ladders. I know you're shouting it at me. It's like suspicion. Superstition! There we go, thank you! Not sure who was shouting the loudest, but you got through. I don't do superstition, but I did watch the Bakery Bears latest episode. Love those guys. Love those guys so much. They are my first podcast. They got me into podcasting as well, so you should definitely be watching them. And they talked a little bit about why they were going to miss episode 13. Which I was really touched that they shared that, which is really nice. Sharing what they're doing and what they're going through and stuff. And I did consider, out of respect, kind of skipping episode 13. But then I thought, you know what, that's I don't know, that seemed maybe a bit much. So I decided not to. And now I'm regretting it and thinking I should have. Oh, I don't know. Too late now. I've said this is episode 13 and I've said that number several times. Sorry, Dan. It is what it is. I just have to move on with it. Also, I'm a bit of a completionist. So I don't like the idea of missing one out. And I'm reminded, in fact, of something that we had a good laugh about over here in the UK, which was... Do you know the film? It came out a good few years ago now, called The Madness of King George. It was originally going to be called The Madness of King George IV, because it was George IV who went insane from syphilis, I believe it was. See, I looked up that way. See what happened there? Syphilis. Just that clip on its own. That would be really weird. And then there was this kind of thing about, oh, but the Americans would all wonder where the madness of King George the First, Second and Third was. Some people do not think highly of the intellect of Americans, it has to be said. And it's amusing to take the mickey sometimes, but no. More appropriate to take the mickey out of is Harry Potter titles. What is your problem with the Philosopher's Stone? Why did they decide? You know, it's probably the American film agencies that decided you couldn't be trusted with King George IV, isn't it? It's probably Hollywood. Because they decided you couldn't handle the Philosopher's Stone. It had to be the Sorcerer's Stone. Like, what's that about? What? Why? It's a Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is a thing. It's a reference. You change the name, it no longer references it. Hey-ho, Billy-o. Oh, and speaking of random things in Harry Potter changing names, awesome factoid for you. In the French version, So the French translation of Harry Potter. Now, I have to sort of pay credit to anybody that is more of a Harry Potter fan than I, because I've read the books, but I'm not a big sort of Potterite. Also, I don't even know the name. I don't know which house I am. That'd be interesting. Do you want to take a guess at what house I am? That'd be good. Tell me what house I am in Harry Potter. Don't tell me to go and do the quiz. I don't want to go and do the quiz. I can't be bothered to do that. Just tell me which house I'm in. So there's something, and spoiler alert, if you haven't read the books, mini spoiler alert. Yeah, skip forward 30 seconds. But there's something about his name. Voldemort, sorry. There's something about his name. Is it something like it's Tom something Riddle? And the anagram of that is something like I am Voldemort. Something like that. And the name Voldemort itself in French means fly from death. Hello. But what was I going to say? Yes, the French translation of the books, they have to change his middle name so that you can change the anagram to Je suis Voldemort. Or, yeah, I think his name's still Voldemort. In French, that's Voldemort. And so, in order to make it work, his middle name has to be Elvis. Oh, yes! His middle name in French is Elvis. How cool is that? Oh, dear. How on earth did I get onto that? It's not even in my notes. I have no idea what I was talking about. I'm somewhere between questions and community. No idea. No idea at all. Harry Potter, name changing, something American. No. Let's just let that one go. And I think, rather than going straight into community now and then stopping 5 minutes in, I will have a little break for me. So there is, to come after the transition on this video, but actually for me it'll be a few hours, the community section, and there's a few bits relating to the podcast actually, and included in that is secret news! Very exciting. But there's a big announcement in the community section as well. So yeah, if you're having a break, don't forget to come back and finish the episode. See you in a bit. Did I do the transition yet? Hey, I'm back. Obviously for you guys I wasn't gone, but the time has shifted by about 4 hours in my world. So it's now about 10:30 at night. And Rory is curled up in my left arm, being very affectionate and wanting all of my attention. And I'm going to try and see if I can record this podcast and keep him happy at the same time. I'm not sure it's going to work, but we'll see. So yes, I kind of felt like the first half I was a bit distracted because I was checking the time all the time, so apologies if that was the case. Ooh, am I apologising? No apologies podcasting, isn't that my rule? Well, let's say then that I didn't like the feeling of being distracted whilst I was trying to podcast as well at the same time. But no, I imagine you guys couldn't really tell and didn't really notice that much, apart from when I was randomly doing stuff like I guess checking messages and stuff, because I'd suddenly, you know, when you're checking your phone for the time and then suddenly there's a text and it's like, oh, why have I got a text, and it could be important, so I'm checking the text and it's like, oh no, it's the freaking phone company trying to get me to buy something. Ugh. They always say on them, don't they, do this to opt out, and it never works. This little guy might decide that he gets bored eventually and go away. Anyway, so yeah, it's a bit late now, but I decided that I'm just going to stick with what I've got in the can already, as it were, and just keep going, and then edit all together, and you get the real me, and that's just, you know, me and my life. This is how we are. That seems like a nice way to do it, and so not to try and be too polished or anything, because I'm not about that in these podcasts. So, I was about to jump into the community section. Let's do that. I am one arm down because of the kitty, so in fact, let's see, can I do this without dropping everything everywhere? Yeah, see, there we go. He's very nonplussed when I pay attention to other things, like shiny things. So my phone, he gets very jealous with my phone, and he gets very jealous with the camera, clearly. He's now sprawling as much as he possibly can across me. Pay me attention. So yeah, what I was going to say is that I'm one arm down, two, if he has his way. So I'm going to have to do a lot of looking down at my notes at the side of me here. The first thing I want to talk about is a new Kickstarter that the person who's running it got in touch and said, would I be so kind as to share the news of it? And I'm like, yeah, duh, I love telling people about stuff that's going on, it's awesome. I do feel like I have to do a bit of a full disclosure beforehand, because she was like, I'll send you lovely things. And I did have a bit of a dilemma. I was like, do I have to refuse that? Or do I have to say, well, I'll give them away? And you guys know me well enough by now, if you're a returning viewer at least, that I like prezzies and I want to keep them all. And she was basically saying they're for me, not for the podcast or to give away. And at that point, then my little child ego has kicked in and gone, yay, things for me! And I don't want to give them away. It's obviously a knitting Kickstarter, or more accurately it is a dyer's Kickstarter, so think lovely fibre, lovely yarn and awesome little things like handmade project bags, but not your usual fabric ones. These are hand-dyed silk hankies that are then felted and then made into project bags. I know, right? That sounds pretty fancy. So, I wrote down some bits and pieces. The first thing I should do is say it's Merle Fibre Arts. There we go. I'm looking down and going, what can I tell you about it? How about the name, James? How about the name? So yeah, Merle is M-I-R-L-A. Mike, India, Romeo, Lima, Alpha. Crikey! Need to practice my, oh, what's it called? The alphabet. Phonetic. I need to practice my phonetic alphabet, sign calling and stuff there. I used to work on the phones, not in a call. Well, I did work in a call centre, but I didn't use it there. I used it when I worked on a support desk, which was a little bit nicer environment and worth learning things like that for. And had it down pat, but it has been a while since I did that. But yes, so Merle Fibre Arts. If you search Merle on Kickstarter, M-I-R-L-A, you will get it come up. That's how I found it, to double check it. And obviously show notes, if you just want to scroll down and click on those. So yeah, I had a look, and there are options from $1, but obviously $1 gets you gratitude and not much else. But if you want to actually buy some stuff, then it goes from about $15, I think, up to $120, depending on how crazy you want to go. So I just did a quick kind of bit of notes. So at the $15 packages, you could get some silk hankies, or some art bats, or some fibre bracelets and stuff. Then working up from that, sorry, I'm stroking Rory and now getting loads of cat fur in the air all over me, and it's making me itch. Going up from that, you can get braids, skeins, bats, as opposed to art bats, and the silk felt project bags. They're called on-the-go bags, and a picture with Ginny in it, who's the lady behind Merle Fibre Arts, shows her knitting from one out on the street kind of thing. So yeah, so I think the braids and skeins and bats and that kind of thing. I didn't make exact notes. Excuse me. Oh dear. Phew. Cat fur everywhere. I didn't make exact notes, but I think it's probably something like about the $20 mark where they start to kick in. But then you get all kinds of combo offers, and you can like double stuff up. And she does international shipping. I checked that with her. Oh dear. And yeah, and then it goes up to like $120 if you want like the whole shebang. Like you get like 3 of everything or something ridiculous. Or no, that's not quite right, but you know what I mean. Like she has packages where you can get a whole bunch of stuff for what's obviously sort of a very reasonable price because you're bulk buying, in effect. So yeah, the last time I checked it, which I think was yesterday, she got the first $1,000 down out of, I think she's aiming for 6. And there's about 15 days left, so about 2 weeks now left on her fundraising goal. So the stuff will be available for about 2 weeks. So possibly not quite in time for Christmas, depending on where you are, for her to be able to ship stuff to you. Obviously over here it wouldn't be in time for Christmas at all. But if you're over in the US, then there may well be time to get stuff in for Christmas. But obviously these things, when you do a Kickstarter, you then got all these massive orders that you have to fulfill. And I don't know, obviously, what her... I didn't look actually at whether she's given like timelines for shipping and stuff. That would be an interesting thing to check out that I didn't. So apologies. You guys can look on Kickstarter and message her if needs be. But yeah, I would. I was having a look at her stuff again because I'd already looked at her shop a couple of times before. So I was looking at her stuff again and trying to think how to describe it to you guys to see if you might be interested. So the first lot of options, like the art bats and the fibre bracelets and stuff, they're kind of fun little doodads. The fibre bracelets are, I think it's knitted fibre and stuff with obviously a sort of decorating on a bracelet for sturdy and what have you. And the art bats as well, I kind of think of them as being quite art pieces, decorative in terms of the bracelet. The art bats obviously being... they're not like art yarn where you can't use it. They look like bats that you could totally use and spin up, but they're not sort of necessarily a obvious repeatable colourway. They're more like fun experiments and a bit of an unknown, lots of things in there, colours and shinies and all that kind of stuff. There we go. Rory's finally decided he's bored of me. Now that he's shed all over me. So it depends on what kind of stuff you like, colour wise and what have you. The actual normal bats, and I thought this was really interesting, she kind of did a reds and oranges, a yellows, a greens, a blues, a purples and a rainbow, I think it was. So obviously a bit of each of those in one, and they look really, really nice. There's obviously lots of variegation in the colour. By which I mean there's lots of different shades of red and stuff. It's not just red, it's reds. They look really nice. The yarn, it's nice strong colours. And I think really with these kind of things you do have to just have a look and see if it's the kind of thing you like. I would say it was the stronger, more saturated end of the spectrum as opposed to sort of... some dyers like to do the very dilute, pastel-y shades. It didn't really strike me as being that. I have to admit, it's a few days now since I properly looked through it. But I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of what's on there. And the silk felt project bags, they look really interesting. The thing that struck me about them, and this is true I think of the art yarn as well, it was this idea of... what would I call it? I want to say like spider webbing, but it's not like a spider web. It's more like lightning streaks. So in the art yarn, you'd get like a little lightning streak of a fibre or something running across, like a white fibre across a coloured section. And in the felt bags, the way that the dyed silk is obviously all felted together, you sometimes get these like what look like lightning streaks of colour across a paler background. And this is all from photos, because she did say she'd send me some stuff, but obviously she's only just sent that off end of last week, so it's going to get here after the Kickstarter's finished. So with anything like this, and I do have somebody else has been in touch and asked me to review something, so as and when that arrives I'll be doing that. I kind of do it all with the proviso of, well, some people's stuff I will recommend without even blinking, because I think it's amazing, and I think they're amazing, and I think whatever they produce is going to be super top quality. But I know those people quite well, or at least reasonably well enough. Whereas when it's somebody that I've had limited contact with, although I'm aware of them, I've seen them around, I've seen their shop, I've not seen her stuff firsthand. So there's an element of kind of wanting to be honest about that and just be clear about that. Merla Fibre Arts, show notes or search on Kickstarter. Worth checking out, support if you can and you would like to. Yeah, that's all I really needed to say, isn't it? Let's see if I can do a bit better on the second one. I can't, because I forgot. I forgot that I was going to prep something before I came and recorded the second half. So, camera magic time. See? The power of the camera magic. Right, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about was, I had a question from, I'm going to hazard the pronunciation as Benin Lane. Apologies, obviously I've only ever seen your name written down. Benin, who I assume to be a woman, but I could be wrong on that as well. Just because I was going to say she, and then I was like, actually I do not know your gender. Or your preferred choice of pronouns either, but we're getting quite technical if I start to go down that road. More chocolate! And I'm doing a Dave thing, aren't I? Look, I've kept the spoon in my mug for some reason. Oh, and now tinnitus. Yay! So, anyway, on YouTube she made a comment about the Fish Lips Kiss heel. And could I show it up close? Because obviously I'd shown my socks. Yay! Before. And she wanted to have a good look at it to see if it was something that she liked. Now, these obviously have now been worn since, so the heel already is showing a little bit of wear. In terms of the wool has just started matting. But let's try and do this one sock rather than both socks. I can let the other one dangle, can't I? So if I just stretch it out a little bit over the sock blocker, you can see the construction of the heel there. Now what I really like is there's only, and it's the same on both sides pretty much, in fact I think this side's even better, for the hole where the heel joins the body of the sock kind of thing. Looks fine, and this line up the centre here I think would probably get a little better with practice at the stitch, because it's the stitch you use to do the short rows that creates that line. I think I could have maybe done it a little bit tighter, or to sort of learn through experience with that. And otherwise it's just a straight stockinette heel. And in terms of fitting into the sock as a whole, it fits really well. The sock fits really well. Now I know some people talk about preferring heel, gusset and heel flap. And that's often to do with the size of your instep, which is this measurement across here. So from here to here. Although really I think of the instep as being this part of the foot from a dance point of view, and from an anatomical point of view I always thought of the instep as being that. But as far as I understand in sock knitting, the instep refers to well, the bigger your instep here, the more this needs to be out, isn't it? And therefore, the bigger this measurement needs to be. So it does make sense. It's just you're looking at a slightly different line when you talk about it in sock making. And so there is an element of some people need a slightly more generous shaping here when they make socks, because otherwise this is too tight, and so you get that weird thing of having to pull the sock on over your heel a little bit. Pull the sock on! Not sure what that was. Oh dear. Possibly a combination of podcasting at nearly 11 o'clock at night and hot chocolate. After Pilates. Pilates was awesome, by the way. Hadn't been for a few weeks, so the body was just like, oh yes, this is amazing, stretching out. I should do it every day, and I don't. Yeah. I should eat 5 vegetables a day, and I don't. But I would say that if you wanted to play with this and you need a bigger instep, there's stuff that you can do. So some people do like mini gussets. I'm doing it on this side. You can't see that. Mini gussets kind of thing, where you do like an inch-long gusset and then a short row heel. And I've seen constructions like that before. So that's quite interesting. It's a way of doing a fish lips kiss heel as part of that and what have you. But I think with sock knitting, you really do have to experiment. Ooh, what's that? A bit of detritus off my sock. I'm so sorry. You really do have to experiment around with different constructions of sock to find what works for you and your foot. I think that any sock pattern or heel pattern or toe pattern and what have you can be adapted to suit your foot shaping and size, and they're really just all starting points for us to find something that works great, because these fit me, but they're not quite a perfect sock fit for me yet. They fit and they're wearable, but I think socks will always be something that I'm constantly trying to tweak and play with and what have you. Because there's something so lovely about a sock that just hugs your foot in all the right places. And there's constructions I've heard about which sound really interesting. So ones that kind of grip the foot around here. So there's something like a double gusset increase under the foot. It creates these 2 V's, and that's supposed to really hug the foot around the instep, which obviously suits people with quite a high arch to the foot and things like that. But I think that might feel quite nice, or it might feel really weird when you put it on, and who knows. Then there's the whole, you know, you get used to things that are different, so it might not feel like the socks I've been used to wearing, which have all been sort of shop bought, what have yous. But that might be fine. It might be that after I just knit a few more socks and sorry, I realised I didn't put my phone on silent. So I'm playing with my phone again. I honestly gone into apologising again, haven't I? I don't think you care. I'm playing with my phone. So what? I'm drinking hot chocolate. I'm talking like a rabbit. And no, I have no idea what that even means. So, a fish lips kiss heel close up. That's what it looks like. There's loads of photos and stuff, obviously, projects on Ravelry, so do have a look. The only thing I was going to say was, in the back of my mind, I went, have I seen that name somewhere else? Because Benin is an unusual name, and I couldn't quite place it. So I thought at this point it would be an opportune moment to mention, in the Dancing Geek podcast group on Ravelry, links in the show notes, so a lovely, lovely person whose name I forgot to write down when I was making these notes. I apologise, because I should rephrase, I like to give credit where credit is due. But a thread was started called the Names thread. And it's all about matching up different names from different social media and what have you, which is awesome. Because as I've said before, I'm Dancing Geek pretty much everywhere, although it's not always Dancing Geek one word. It is on Instagram and Ravelry, and they're the ones that really matter for the knitting world usually. But I am on Twitter and Tumblr, but with punctuation in there and stuff. So now I've put my entry in there. So you can look at my profile, or you can see everybody's entries all in one. So for me, that's amazing. Because I can just reference that loads, and as people put them in one by one, I can kind of scan them and see them all in one grouping, and that's a really key thing. If I see them all lumped together, I'm more likely to remember them as one entry. I have very visual memory, and so seeing things, I'll be able to picture them later and go, oh yes, her name is Emma, is Distortion, and is also Chubby Pug Yarns, and is also, ooh, here's a quick test for me. No, can't remember. On Ravelry, she's something else. Maybe Chubby Pug? No, that doesn't seem right. Chubby Pug Yarns on YouTube. On the Chubby Pug Yarns podcast. Maybe she is Chubby Pug Yarns. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, it might help me at least. So, Benin, if you feel up to it, do go and put your names in the group thread, and then I will know if I have chatted to you elsewhere a little bit better. There was a VKN, one of the early VKNs with FO and I, where I think I've told this story before. I was chatting with Rebecca, and I recognised her face, and eventually I just had to give in and say, I'm sorry, who are you? You know, it's like such an awkward question to ask, but I just get on with it and just like, yep, I'm sorry, I can't remember who you are, you're going to have to tell me again. I've done this in group therapy, where you should I should know everyone's name in that group, and I do, but I had to write them all down, and I had a sudden blank, and I just sat there going, I can't remember anyone's name, so I just had to turn around to somebody and go, sorry, what's your name again? It's not personal, I'm having a name forgetting moment, I've just forgotten everybody's names. Everybody. It's not personal. Fortunately, the person that was sat next to me just told me everyone's names. And then I had to remember hers, but thankfully, once she started naming a few, it sparked the old cogs. But yes, everybody go and stick your name in there, please. Names in there, in fact, that's the whole point, isn't it? So yeah, there's that. Another thing that I learnt on a recent VKN, you see, VKNs are awesome, guys, there's so much content comes from these, was about freezing yarn. Now, if you're like me, this makes you go, what? Oh, excuse me. What was that? That was like half a laugh, half a hiccup, and half a burp all at the same time. That sounded very odd. I apologise. Nah, I'm in an apologetic mood this evening, obviously. Whatevs. Just go with it. I'm certainly not going to apologise for apologising, am I? Or maybe I will. But yes, freezing yarn. So this threw me quite a bit. This is so Ellie and Kate. Ellie being FO and Die Ellie, and Kate being Gourmet Stash Kate. Who I found out recently is Faire Attention on Ravelry, which is amazing. It's French for be careful or warning. I thought that was fantastic. It's spelled, just in case you're interested, fair, as in the fair is going to down, the circus, or it's only fair. Then stick an E on the end of that, and then attention, because that's spelled the same. So faire attention. Anyway, they were talking about freezing yarn. So Ellie was saying you can freeze it if it's scratchy. And the proviso that Kate said, which Ellie agreed with, was that's really only for thicker yarns. So it needs to be, I think it was DK or above. You certainly don't want to do it to lace or fingering weight. So I'm guessing that it might soften those a bit too much and make them fall apart or something. Or it just is riskier with those. But yeah, they were saying if you've got a larger yarn and it's scratchy, stick it in the freezer. So the idea was for a couple of hours, take it out, let it defrost, and it will soften the yarn. I'm guessing the freezing and then defrosting action does something to the yarn the same way it acts on like rocks over time. In that ice is bigger than water, so when it freezes, the water in it will expand. So that's why things can sometimes go slushy after you've frozen them, because if they've got a lot of water in them, the water turns into big, large ice crystals and bursts through all the cells or the body of water or what have you. and then it contracts again, leaving you with just a big slushy mess sometimes. But yeah, that might be how it works. I don't know. I'm making this up. However, the other tip that came out was if you want to rip out something like mohair, or no, I wrote down alpaca. I wasn't 100% sure if it was alpaca that Kate said. Mohair is one she definitely said. So I'm kind of thinking it's obviously if it's something that's quite sort of grippy to itself, and I've not had to try and rip out alpaca, so I don't know if it's like that. But mohair certainly I know would be quite grippy to itself and stuff like that. But if you have something like that you want to rip out and it's being a right pain, if you pop it in the freezer, and this applies to any weight, but for 15 minutes, and then take it out and rip it, it should come out a lot easier. And I thought, that's magic. I have no idea what's happening to make that do that, and I think that's crazy awesome. But so there's some tips. Not mine, but I love to share them when I learn these things. So how cool is that? So yes, your freezer can help you if your yarn is being problematic. Awesome! Last on my community list is big announcement time. Now, if you are a follower of FO and Die, and you'll notice I talk about them a lot. I talk to them a lot. Yeah, they're my friends. You will probably have watched their latest podcast, and therefore you will know about this big announcement. But I am very, 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 very excited by this. And this is an announcement that on the 16th and 17th of May, this is weekend in May next year, so we're planning ahead, guys, 6 months ahead, these two have decided to host a festival. A fibre yarn festival down in the south, near where they are. And this is one of those times where I go, now is it, I think it's Essex. No, it's not Essex, it's the other one. Exeter, there we go. Oh, you see, it's down south, I don't know. I get Sussex, Essex, Wessex, Exeter, and a whole bunch of other places. Just, I couldn't even point to it on a map right now, to be honest. I'd have to Google where on earth this place is. It's south, I know that much. But I'm going to go, obviously. I will find out where it is before the 16th of May. So I'm going to be going down for this awesome, awesome fibre festival these guys are putting together. It sounds epic. I did know that they'd sort of had this in mind as a cool idea a little while ago. But I'd not heard anything about it from them since, and then they suddenly came out as an announcement. So I was surprised as well. There is now a Ravelry group, which I am the proud third member of, behind Ellie and Dave, so I was very chuffed that I got in there. I was like, yes! Sort of first! Woo! It's called FO Fest. The festival is called FO, so it's FO and Die, FO and Die, so it's called FO Fest. And it's spelled all one word, the group, so if you search FOFEST, that's Foxtrot Oscar, Foxtrot Echo Sierra Tango, in Ravelry you'll find it. You'll find the group straight away, and there's a couple of threads in there for things like announcements and chatter and vendors and stuff. And obviously it's super early days, there's still 6 months to go before the event, but get in there. Let them know that you want to come down or what have you, and let's give them a good enthusiastic yay, it's in my diary and I'm coming down, or at least ooh, I really hope I can. There has even been talk, because it's 6 months away, of people saving up and coming from other countries. Oh yes, people. It's in the south of England, so if you're coming up from Europe, not so far to travel. And if you're coming over by plane, then not so far from the airports. So, no excuses, guys. And yes, I will be there. Come hell or high water, I will drag my limp corpse down to this thing. So yes, that is very cool. And I actually was properly excited when I saw that. When I just completely spoiled their announcement if you haven't watched their podcast yet, but hey ho. As I was watching it and Dave started to so he's got this announcement, he's dragging it out, and I was literally starting to sit on the edge of my seat going, oh no, come on, say it, what is it? And then he started to talk about their first anniversary, and I was like, they haven't been going with FO and Die that long. And then he said, yeah, 16th of May was pretty much when they first started doing FO and Die. And I kind of went, hang on a second, that's not a year's anniversary. And then something went, he's talking about it will be a year's anniversary. So I was thinking like, oh, they're planning very long ahead here. And I started to remember, and I was like, is it? Is it? Is it? Is it? And then he said, Go Fest. We're going to do a festival. And I was like, yee! And immediately messaged them and squeezed down the phone at them, basically. So yes, big plug for that as well. Right, that's everyone else's stuff. Now I get to talk about my own stuff for a bit. There are 3 things for me to do related to my podcast in this one. Very exciting. The first one I shall do is some news that there is to be had on the knit-along. So, sorry, I think I finished the hot chocolate, but it's doing that little repeaty thing. I apologise. Again! Why am I doing? I don't know. Because, actually I do know why. It's because I can tell I'm a little bit distracted, I'm a little bit tired, and I'm a little bit floofy-headed. And I'm feeling particularly tangential and rambly. And apologetic for those things as well, because I'm not feeling quite so assertive in myself. Meh, no biggie. But yes, knit-along news. So, the plan is still to have it in the new year. I'm thinking sort of fairly early in the new year, probably first or second week in January, something like that. Sort of not straight away in the new year because everyone's still recovering, but sort of somewhere that makes sense around the 7th of January, something like that. I haven't set a date yet. I've got a couple of weeks before I need to sort of start really pinning stuff down. However, I can tell you a couple of things. The knit-along will be for my hat pattern and Carty's cowl pattern, which is named after me, inspired by me, designed for me. Oh my god. I am still not over the awesomeness that is Carty designing this cowl. I mean, come on guys, it's amazing, right? You agree with me, I'm sure. Just how blown away would you be that weeks and weeks and weeks have come past, and I'm still, every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, wow. So yes, however, 2 related announcements that are new, as opposed to just telling you guys about the cowl again, because you already knew all of that stuff. 1. The Barclay cowl pattern is launched when this goes live. As I'm recording this, at something like gone 11 o'clock on Wednesday night. No, it's not live yet. The plan is it's going to go live on Thursday lunchtime. But so will this podcast, because I've got to do the editing tonight. It'll upload overnight. And then I will do things like notes and stuff tomorrow morning, check everything's uploaded, re-upload half of it again because it didn't work for whatever reason. And then usually about lunchtime on Thursday I should be able to get it live. So then the pattern should be up and running by the time that this podcast is out. So you guys can go get it. However, I should have said this beforehand. If you got super, super excited, paused the video, went off, bought it, and have just come back, I'm sorry. Thank you, and I'm sorry. I probably should have mentioned first that for the cowl, there's going to be a coupon code for Carty's pattern. Oh dear, I did things in the wrong order there, didn't I? So I mean. So yes, Carty said that she's going to publish it now with this episode. And then, because we had a little chat earlier today, and then when we get nearer to the cowl, we'll sort out a coupon code to give you guys so that you can buy the pattern with a bit of time to get ready and everything. However, I will start the thread as I'm sorting this podcast out, so that you guys can start to think about yarns you're going to use and show pictures to each other and stuff, because I really enjoyed doing that with the mystery knit-alongs that I've been doing, and I thought that's a really nice aspect actually. You can ask questions, you can posit solutions to each other's questions. You know, I'm sure I can get Carty either to come into the forum and join in, or I will forward questions to her, what have you. She's super friendly, so I kind of just sign her up for stuff. Like I keep just coming up with ideas on the podcast as I'm recording, record it, and then Carty's like, yeah, okay. So she watches this and then gets in touch. Hi, Carty, I'm sorry. I'm just volunteering you for stuff. But yes, so hold off buying the pattern straight away. That's a little reward for you guys for watching the podcast. Obviously, it's going to go live, big announcement, but you guys can hold off for a little bit. And then at some point, I don't know what it'll be, but I will give it in the podcast. So it's sort of for loyal podcast watchers. Which, you know, is a bit of an ask, so I might say it in a couple of podcasts because they're not short. And you can't get to all of them, and I understand that. But yes, I'm not going to mention anywhere else, just in the podcast. So this is especially for you guys. Love! Is it high? No, it's not high enough. Love! That's not very good. Let's try again. Love! Oh, whatever. You know what I'm doing. It's not working. Oh dear, this is why I should not podcast at this hour. If you watch Knitting in Stitches, yes, I had to get that right because there's Knitting in Circles and all those. Knitting in Stitches, who is Moira over in Canada in PEI. She often, because she's gone back to work cycle now that term started again, she's recording in the evening, and I remember earlier on she was kind of going, oh, I'm a bit batty sometimes, I get tired, and then I'm recording and I feel like I'm waffling on and stuff, and I kind of feel like that as well. I don't quite feel connected to the camera at the moment. I feel like I'm in my own little head just yabbering on a bit. And I said to her, oh, I'm watching you late at night. It's great, I'm kind of in that same mood. This is the mood I'm in when I'm watching Moira late at night. This is normally me watching podcasts right now, not recording. This is the other reason I do it during the day. But I've procrastinated massively, and this is the result. Hey ho. You just get to see another side of me. And that's what my podcast is about. So, there we go. Right. I feel like I've said that a lot as well. Pfft, whatever! And that, and right, and all of the above. I'm just... I just feel like I'm in a silly mood. But yes, there will be a coupon. It will come out at some point before the Cal starts. I can't say any more than that right now. But the pattern is live now, so if you want to go and check out what the pattern page looks like and stuff, and favourite, and stick it in your queue and all that kind of stuff. Stick it in your wish list, see if someone will buy it for you. And then, yeah, it'll be my hat and Carty's cowl. And a couple of people I did notice started to knit my hat as it's written at the moment. I saw a few Instagram posts and stuff like what have you, and I was super excited, and thank you very much, you guys. So I will go and start to do some looking around on Ravelry and stuff. So probably, actually no, I was going to say it'd probably be after Christmas, but actually we've had some shift around of dates in my social circles and what have you, which means that I actually, all of my Christmas deadlines have shifted. Some of them quite a bit, some of them not so much, but still. So the stress is just chilling out, guys. Chilling out! Yes, you're right. Whoever it was that said I'm not really chilled, you're quite right. I'm not really chilled. Because you can hear it in my voice, I'm chilling out! But some of the pressure is off, so I might try and do a bit of this beforehand. And then there's just the whole, actually, I'm just not going to enforce a false deadline for my knitting. I had a lovely suggestion from somebody, which was just give them yarn and then say, I'm going to take that back now and turn it into your present for you, but I wanted you to approve the yarn and see it and touch it and feel its gooiness. And they did that with sort of a friend that had a baby and stuff, and it was a really cool idea, and she liked sort of seeing it progress or feeling like she was involved in that process. So that is a nice idea. And really handy if you're like me and hate preparing for Christmas anything more than about 4 weeks in advance. And apparently today it's 4 weeks till Christmas Eve, so there we go. And I still haven't finished my whips, so I'm not ready for Christmas knitting. Do you know what? Que sera, sera. I don't remember how I got onto all of that. Oh, my hat pattern, yes. Because I still want to try and write it up a bit better for the knit along. I don't know if I will. What I might do instead, if that doesn't work, this is my backup plan, is I might sort of leave the pattern as it is at the moment. I think it's perfectly readable. I haven't had any negative feedback about it or any constructive feedback about it. I've not really had any feedback at all about it yet. So that's always useful if you guys are knitting it and you want to give me any feedback. That's always really cool. But what I might do is leave it as it is and then wait till after the cowl to rewrite it, but then sell it. I don't know. Because you know what it's like with some patterns, you kind of think this is fairly straightforward. It's not really got much in it. But if I went to the trouble of writing it for different weights and giving different stitch counts for different sizes and stuff, and maybe knit a few up and took photos and stuff, and co-opted my friend's children to model it and stuff like that, maybe that would be a bit better and worth actually sort of selling it as a cheaper pattern. That might make sense, yeah. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. If I did it before the cowl, then it would still be free. It'd be free until the cowl's over, either way, whatever I did. And if I ever did charge for it, I still might not, even if I did all the work. But I certainly wouldn't charge for it until the cowl's long done, kind of thing. So I'm not going to charge you guys for it. Not my buddies! Not you guys! Right, whew. I am a little bit manic. Second announcement, and this one is my super special awesome announcement, which is possibly why I'm also dragging this out a little bit. Excuse me. So I teased a lot last week, and certain people among you do kind of go, "Ah, God, take it, stop teasing us!" Which, to be fair, just fuels my wanting to tease you more, quite frankly, because I love it. The power! You know who you are, Crystal. Yes! I love giving Crystal shout-outs as well, because she will send me a message afterwards going, "Oh my God, Squee, you said my name again!" And I love that. I'm like, "Hi, Crystal! Squee! Are you running around your room squeeing now?" Best thing ever, right? How to get me to do whatever you want me to. Message me and tell me that it's an awesome thing, and I'll do it, you know. I don't get nearly as many messages as some people seem to think I do. But yes, so this is about my Super Secrets podcast news. So I've got some actual details to give you. Number one, this will be happening on the 13th of December. Number two, that's a Saturday, by the way. Saturday, the 13th of December. Number two, it will be happening at 7 PM. Number three, if you haven't guessed it already, it's going to be a live podcast! Oh my God. I am both terrified and excited at the same time, which, neurophysically speaking, is exactly the same thing. I think I mentioned this one before. Your adrenal response for fight or flight is exactly the same. So excitement and fear is the same thing. It's how you interpret that response and how confident you are about the situation that causes that response as to whether you get excited or scared. I am a little bit of both. But given that I sit here and waffle to you guys, to camera, for hours at a time with no problem whatsoever, I kind of figure a live broadcast is not going to be hard, and it saves me having to do any editing. I have an excuse not to do it. So, 13th of December, starting at 7 PM UK time. So, with a little bit of mental maths, and I'll try and do a bit more prep. I might do a thread for it with some info and stuff like that. I'll try and do a bit more kind of info around what time that is in different time zones and stuff. But briefly, if you are in, I think it's Central European time, you're usually an hour ahead of us basically, so that would be 8 PM. And then for America, I think by now we're all back on the usual time differences. I think we've both gone through daylight savings and back into sort of normal mode. So you guys would be between 5, 6, 7, 5 and 8 hours behind. So it would be between 2 p.m. on the East Coast and 11 a.m. dearie me, on the West Coast. So it goes 11, 12, 1 and 2 for the start time. I haven't looked at what it would be for my Antipodean peeps, but it would possibly be something like 6 o'clock in the morning, which isn't too evil. Personally, for me, I'd be like, no, I'll join you later. I'll watch it later. Because it will be recorded. It's going to be a live broadcast to YouTube. And the way that works is when we finish, it's then available as a YouTube video. So you guys, if you can't make the live broadcast, then you guys can just watch it as a normal podcast edition later on. However, the beauty of a live broadcast is you guys can get in touch. So we're going to set up a whole bunch of social media type stuff so you can get in touch with me. I say we because I'm not just going to do this on my own. I have a friend who runs a production company, and it was his idea. He's going to do all the technical work. I just have to sit in front of the camera. Hopefully I'm going to have a co-host. And yeah, I'm working out content at the moment, so it'll be a slightly different format. It won't just be me yabbering on. We're going to do a little bit more, and I'm not trying to tread on toes here, Dan and Kay, but it's going to be a little bit more kind of like a daytime thing, a daytime show thing, but awesome, and live. So it feels a little bit like morning television, which, yes, I'm pretty sure everyone has. I'm pretty sure that's an international phenomenon. Less naff, probably just as camp. So we're going to work out sort of content stuff for me to talk about and have and what have you. Just to kind of give it a bit of structure. The length of it, we are looking at, I'll say that much. Certain people may start to wonder, ooh, from that comment. Others of you may just go, oh God, from that comment. And others of you may be like, I have no idea what to think about that. And that's fine. Don't worry about it. But I'm looking at what we can put together. So it's not in the morning. It is in the evening, at least over here in the UK. It will be morning television, basically be morning television for my Antipodean friends. So, this is going to... I set myself up here now, didn't I? Ian is one. Hi, Ian. He started watching recently and wrote. He's from New Zealand. And then, do you know what? You know when I say I can't remember people's names, the second I try and think of them? This is embarrassing because she was ever so kind and sent me 2 project bags. Unfortunately, I got Sandra's name stuck in my head. And I'm trying to think, you know, it was something like that. It wasn't Sarah or Sarah. No, because it wasn't an S at all. It had an S in it, I think. Give me the C. Oh no! I do this every time! Oh man! Shazza! Sharon! Yes! Oh, get in! Knitting Shazza! I feel so guilty when I can't remember, when you've gone to all that effort of making me lovely things, sending me a present, and then I can't even remember your name. That is bad. I am genuinely, I struggle with names. I need a really visual tie, and I need to see your name written down with the visual tie, which is why this names thread is perfect for me. Because it's your name written down with a visual tie, so like your avatar, your ravatar, and your other names all written together. That will help me. But a colourful picture is best. So obviously when I think of Sharon, I remember your name, Sharon. Hi Sharon. what I do is I think of the bags that she made me, including this beauty. Thank you very much. And then I have to work from that picture to try and find her name, and it's things like the Ravelry name will come up and stuff like that. And weird how brains work, aren't they fascinating? So that's how mine works. So yes, I remembered. There's some Aussie peeps as well. And I'm going to struggle with that. I know the some Aussie peeps because when I look, I do hover my mouse over people's avatars and stuff when I'm chatting, and I see the little Australian flag come up a few times. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Just the whole international thing gives me a kick every time. I kind of think people in another country, never mind the other side of the whole globe, like, hi guys! It's fantastic for me. It just blows my mind. So I know there's a bunch of peeps, and some people I see podcasts from Australia, so I kind of connect that a little bit. So there's Yarnder Woman, and there's Aussie Yarning, and there's others who are on the tip of my tongue. And I'm sorry, guys, you are in my head somewhere, but I haven't quite managed to memorise everyone that I chat to. Do my best. I try so hard, but I suck at it at the best of times. And there is actually, for everybody, there is a neurological limit. This is called, is it the monkey number? I think of it as the village number. It's something like that. But basically, the idea is that you can hold in your head about 150 people. Now that kind of means sort of hold them properly, like you know who they are, you know what they're up to, that kind of thing. That number for me is about 5. That's all part of my I'm not autistic, but I have several autistic traits thing. People often ask me, do I have Asperger's and things like that. There is that side to me, definitely. I'm not autistic. I don't want to. I think it's offensive is too strong a word, and I don't like the word offensive anyway, because I think offensive's kind of, it's like political correctness. It's kind of silly. It's not real. But I think it's incredibly trivializing to throw around terms like that. It's the same way as people say, oh, I'm OCD or what have you, and they just mean they're fastidious about something. I have obsessive compulsive traits, but I am not OCD, because that is a genuinely debilitating disorder. And other things like that, oh, I'm depressed. Actually, what you are is you're feeling a bit down today. There are people, myself included, but not most severely affected, who really, really struggle with depression. Depression is a serious illness, etc., etc., etc. So Asperger's is something that some people really, really struggle with. Other people live with it and embrace it as who they are, which is another sort of really interesting thing as an able-bodied person, as an able person, to understand that a disability is not a disadvantage, it's a difference of perspective, it's a different mode of living, it's a different way of living, and all these kind of things. I'm very new to this kind of stuff, so I'm trying to be careful that I don't stumble up and say something stupid when I'm broadcasting my opinions. And I am lucky enough to have friends who I'm able to learn from about these kinds of things, which is awesome, as well as resources online, social resources. Tumblr is a great site for listening to people talk about their lives and the things like discrimination, whether it's racial or religious or based on ability or gender or sexuality or all kinds of minorities. Tumblr just seems to be a great place where people come and they form little groups and they talk to each other about it, and there's some great resources generally to learn about all these kinds of things. And I'm obviously, at least I'd hope it's obvious by now, an avid reader of many of these things. I find it so fascinating and so humanizing and grounding to kind of learn about the ways in which I am so privileged and so lucky in my life. So yeah, anyway, crikey, where was that massive tangent from? I'm looking down going, special edition live episode. How the heck did I get to disability awareness? Not OCD, but the other one. Autistic. Mild autistic traits around... Yes, people and the magic village number. Yeah. So there's no way I could keep track of that many people and know what they're all up to and what have you. And this was all because I was talking about trying to sort of get to know everybody in terms of being able to recognise people and know who somebody was from one space to another and remember who I've talked to. And obviously the more you talk to me, the more you interact with me, the more I will start to sort of remember who you are. That's fairly normal. But in terms of really keeping track of people, it's something that I really struggle with. And part of that is psychological, and part of it maybe neurological. A lot of my autistic traits are actually psychologically based. They're not neurological. So autism is a neurological condition, as I understand it. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. Whereas my stuff is more psychologically based. It's about decisions I've made and ways of living that I've taken on in order to survive and in response to life happenings. Like everybody does, basically. And these are mine. And I'm getting to learn more about them and try and change the ones that I want to change. Well, I've got to have a bit of random therapy in there somewhere, don't I, when I'm talking about this stuff. Somewhere in the podcast there will be a bit of something about psychology and psychotherapy. Almost guaranteed. So yeah, 13th of December, 7 PM UK time. I recommend going online and Googling if I haven't mentioned your time. And I will stick a link as well, probably in the show notes. If not, also in a little forum thread for that. Let me just make a note of thread for that. I have a feeling I've said I'm going to do something in a note or something and then I didn't make a note earlier. Oh, I said thread for the Cal, and I hadn't actually written it down in my notes. There we go, done. So I would love if you guys would make a little time to come and sit down with me and interact. Please feel free to interact at whatever level suits you. I know a lot of people will feel way too shy, or I get the impression, and I could be way off base here, I could just be bigging myself up and thinking too much of myself, but I get the impression that some people think that I'm this like uber famous podcaster and like everybody wants to talk to me. And I'm really not, guys. I'm really not. I'm very fortunate in that somehow I have a lot of subscribers on YouTube for the age of my podcast. I recognise that I have an unusually high number, but it's not Mahusive. You know, you go and look at actual Mahusive podcasts, they have hundreds of thousands. I have 800 something, I think, which is amazing. But of those 800, there's probably about 10 that regularly interact with me. So if you've thought about interacting with me, and I keep saying, you know, message me, you know, I'm actually not massively inundated with messages. I did struggle this week to get back to people, so I did a big push yesterday to make sure I'd gone through messages. But that was just because I'd suddenly had a few busy days and a bad day and late recording and so I had fewer days between publishing last week's and recording today and stuff. But I don't hear from anywhere near as many people as some of you seem to think I do, and therefore feel like, oh, I shouldn't bother James, or, you know, oh, he won't have time to talk to me, or, oh, I don't have anything worth saying, someone else will have said it, you know, all of those kind of things. I want to say, come on, guys, chat. Particularly if you do it in, say, a comment or a forum space, then other people can talk to you as well. So you have questions and stuff, other people can join in. If you want to private message me, that is totally cool. I encourage it. Come on Ravelry, send me a PM, DancingGeek. It's not like when I say this, I suddenly get like 20 people message me. I usually get about 3 or 4. 3 or 4 people go, well, you said to message you, so I'm messaging you, and I'm like, yay! I got 3 extra messages. So it's great to know that you guys are watching, but I'm not completely inundated with comments or anything. So please do feel free to get in touch generally. And for the live episode, I would love if you guys sort of came and watched with interacting in mind. So something like Twitter will be a definite. There's talk of trying to set something up like Skype, for example, so that you guys could actually ring in and have a conversation with me on air. How cool would that be? Yeah? My tech guy is a genius, right? So it's all up in the air, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but if you have ideas or you have ways that you would like to get in touch, then shout. The idea is I'd have somebody checking things like forum threads and Twitter feeds and anywhere else that you guys want to get in touch with me. So if you have ideas for ways you think that are good, or you want to try, or you want to do anything else, jump in, shout out. I mean, it's only, what, about 2.5 weeks away. So it's not long. I've got a lot of work to do. Along with my Christmas knitting and everything else. Oh my god. But I would really love it. I would love it to be an opportunity to actually interact with loads more of you. And for those of you that can't, that's totally cool, and just watch it as an episode like normal. And if I get 3 people come and get in touch, I will be very happy. If I get 30 people, I will be ecstatic. If I get 300 people, I think I will be blown away. But we'll see. Ah, dear. So yeah, as I say, I start a thread. It would be so cool if you think you can make it, if you shout in the thread, just so I can kind of get an idea if people will be watching, because, you know, it'll make it super special for me to think that I'm doing it for you guys. And for certain ones in particular, I can give you guys shout outs and stuff then, and you can say, yay, I'm watching, and I give you guys shout outs as we're going along, and you can make a comment, and then I'll be able to reply, and we'll all have a laugh together, and yay, it'll be like I'm actually sat in your living room chatting with you whilst you're knitting or what have you. And you can actually talk back. Like, isn't that the best podcast thing ever? I think it is. I am so excited about this. So excited. Can you tell? I am proper blown away. When my friend said it, I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No, do not pull my leg. So I waited a little bit to tell you guys, because I was like, I've got to make sure he's serious. I've got to make sure he's serious. And we've had another chat since. And he's like, yeah. I was going to go down to see him this weekend. And that's had to fall through for various reasons. Nothing tragic or upsetting, but it's not going to work. So I'm actually going to be going down the night before we broadcast, and that's it. That's our prep time. Now, if you can't tell, I do this pretty much by the seat of my pants, and my mate does some of his stuff by the seat of his pants. He's great. I mean, he's that good that he can. He's just going to like set everything up, and we'll just hit record and play or whatever. We'll stick broadcast on YouTube, and we'll be off. And we'll see what happens. And we'll just both do our thing. There won't necessarily be much in the way of rehearsal, so it might feel a little bit more like one of those children in need things, or comic relief, rather than morning television, where it feels perhaps a little bit more polished. Not much, mind you, but a little. But we'll see. I just think it'd be great fun and a great experiment. And if you guys can come and you watch it and you like it, let us know. Because it might not be a one-off if it goes well, right? Cool. So that's that. I think I've rambled on enough about that. So finally, last thing. I feel a bit mean putting this at the end now. I wrote it at the end because I was like, I'm going to make you watch the whole thing. And now I'm like, really? You're going to make this person sit through a whole episode of you babbling on like a lunatic? To the extent where my voice is starting to hurt again a little bit, even though I've had a drink. Look at me! I'm actually yawning, it's that late now. And I've still got to go and edit this and start it uploading. Jeep. However, I thought I would do another random draw from the threads. as a thank you to you guys for being in the forums and what have you. So this time I thought I'd do the introductions thread. There's just over 100 posts in there now, half of which are me, because I do like to say hi and chat back. Well, almost half of which are me. Some of it other people chatting away and stuff, which is totally cool. You can chat to each other and say hi in there as well. So if you haven't come along to the introductions thread, come say hi, introduce yourself. It's cool if you don't want to. I don't do it for all the podcasts that I watch because it would start to feel a little bit like, hi, my name's James. And then I'd copy and paste by the end of it. And then, you know, when you follow more than one podcast, it'd be a bit weird seeing the same person just copy and paste in all the introductions thread. Like, how disingenuous is that? Not that you can't do it, and if that suits you, that's fine. But for me, it would be disingenuous. Just checking myself there, James. It might work for other people just because it doesn't work for you. Not everybody's like me. Thank God. What an insane world that would be, right? Anyway, so yeah, there's an introductions thread. And I tried to do it from the fact that I think there was 38 voices in it. And I really like the idea of going, oh, so I can look at everybody that's posted in the thread, but you click on it, and then Ravelry gives you kind of a selection. So they show you a list of the most chatty people, and then sort of chatty people. But it's really weird, because some people are in both lists. I'm like, right, okay. But it wasn't even because, like, it ran out of people to display. It didn't show me all the people that had posted in the forum, and it doubled some people up. So I have no idea what Casey is doing with that function. It's not one of the better ones, and he still hasn't fixed the attaching photos to bundles one, so I might have to write him a message and go, dude, you bigged it up, I went and used it, I told all my podcast followers, and it ain't working properly. But yes, come on James, get to the point. Introduction thread. I did a draw, and it came out for... This is just D, who surprisingly is D. She said her name is Deanne, but D to friends and family, and I kind of figure, meh, you're automatically my friend, therefore I call you D. Hi D! She's from Canada. Hi Canada! Or as I once called it by accident, again on a VKN, Canadian. Because I was thinking about Canadian, and then I tried to switch back to the noun and went Canada. That's not right. Canada. So yeah, this is just D. Same thing as last time. $10 US worth of patterns on Ravelry. So hit me up with a message with the patterns that you want, and I will gift them over to you. So they have to be giftable on Ravelry, yada yada yada, the usual kind of thing. If that's not obvious, which it might not be, because I don't know how many podcasts you watch. But yeah, it needs to be a pattern giftable in Ravelry. If you're not sure, when you look at the pattern, look at the buying options, and one of the options will be buy as a gift. And if you see it, then I'll see it, which means I can buy it for you. So yeah, you've got up to $10 US to spend. If you can get it in other currency, you just have to do the conversion so that you know how much you've got to spend in that currency. Roughly speaking, it's something like £6 British and 12 Canadian dollars. Ish, very rough. Something like that. Oh, and euros. Let's be fancy. What could be in euros? I guess 8, maybe? I don't know. Something like that. 6, 8, 10, 12, something like that. I'm totally just guessing. Well, I'm not totally just guessing, I'm guesstimating. It's an educated guess. And that, finally, is the end of my notes. Do you know what? I don't want to stop podcasting. Because I've only recorded for an hour in this slot. I did an hour earlier. And I was tempted to re-record it because I felt a bit dithery. And then I was like, nah, sod that. But because I've only done an hour in this stint, I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go. I want to keep going. I just want to chat with you guys for a bit. I don't have any more notes. I have no idea what I want to talk about. I could do a random book review for something I've got on my shelf there. Yeah, okay, so I'm actually doing it, guys. I'm doing it. Oh God, he says. I'm keeping going. So, a book. Son of Stitch and Bitch. This is one of the first knitting books I got, and obviously, Stitch and Bitch is a thing. It's by Debbie Stoller, or Stoller. I'm going to go with Stoller. And she has a series of books. So there's Stitch and Bitch, the Knitter's Handbook, Stitch and Bitch Nation, Stitch and Bitch Crochet, The Happy Hooker, and various other things. Apologies if the language in that is upsetting for you. I didn't think about that. Because I think of it as one word. You know, when a name, you forget about the words that are in it. And then I just realised as I said it repeatedly, I was like, oh, hang on a second. I'm saying a word quite a lot there. So this is Son of. I'll stop using the full title. And as it says on the book, it's 45 projects to knit and crochet for men. And that's pretty good. It's unusual to get 45 projects for guys. Now what that means is, are they 45 naff projects or not? Well, I've already made some in here. Some of my first projects. I made these socks a long time ago, but I made them in pure wool, so they have since disintegrated. But yes, I made entrelac socks. They were the second pair of socks I ever knitted as well. Do you know what? Sometimes when you're a complete newbie and you don't know what's supposed to be hard and you just see a pattern and go, that's pretty, I'm going to try and make it. You just get on with it. And yeah, it was tricky and they were a little bit tight and a bit awkward to get on over the heel and stuff. But I loved them and I was gutted when they wore through. And they were beautiful. I did them in blue and white. And there's a photo of them on my project page because I have everything on my project pages. These are the other socks I knitted, which are the Chubby socks. I did those in my bamboo yarn that I was talking about earlier. Again, project page has it all on, so there's that. There are a couple of other socks and there's ties and stuff. I'm not sure how I feel about knitted ties. That feels a bit weird. There's a sort of a novelty teddy bear, so it's a bit gory. Apologies. Bit random. Doesn't really appeal to me, but I can kind of see it being a bit more like it's a funny thing. You know, it's got blood coming out of the middle of it. Do you know what though? I reckon if you replace that bee with an alien from the Alien film, Aliens 3 and Alien Resurrection, then it would be awesome. That would be epic. So get rid of the bee and knit an alien instead, and make that. Now that would be very cool. And yeah, there's some really random. So you know, there's 45 patterns. You're gonna have some random stuff in there. There's like a balaclava, like a lucha libre mask, and things like that. But there's some more of your standard patterns, which are really, really cool. There's a little bit, so this often happens when you get a book for knitting for guys. It's the same as the Knits Men Want book. Have I done a review of the Knits Men Want book? I don't know. If I haven't, let me know, because I'll do one for that as well. I think it's awesome. So the first section is all about how to knit for men, what to do when knitting for men, things not to do when knitting for men. And it's about things like us blokes. We have a completely different approach to what we wear and why we wear it and how we wear it, which is, you know, totally normal. And it changes with fashions and what have you. But what that means is when women knit for men, sometimes they don't realise that they're knitting for themselves in certain aspects. So it might be the fit of it, how much ease they use, how wide the sleeve is, that kind of thing. Like they kind of go, oh, I always have mine an inch wider at the cuff, so I'll do that for his. And then he's kind of like going, this cuff feels a bit weird. Now, I'm making this up, so I don't know what a sort of an actual number is. It's also things like we're really fussy. You know, women I often find will say things like, you know, oh, what was it? There was a perfect example of this recently. And it was something like, oh, hang on, it's nearly there. Someone was wearing a headband. Kay from the Bakery Bear podcast was wearing a headband. Gorgeous, colour-worked headband. And she was saying, yeah, it's in alpaca. An alpaca blend, I think. And I'm not so great with alpaca. It's a little bit itchy. And I'm like going, are you insane? Like, if I found alpaca a little bit itchy, I would just not knit in it. If I find a yarn a little bit itchy, I'm like, right, I can't wear this. Okay, so now I know about trying to freeze it if it's a heavier weight yarn, or soaking it in hair conditioner as my tricks. This is lamb's wool, and is just the slightest hint of itch, but it's just the side that I can bear and I can ignore it, so that's fine. But, you know, she occasionally was like, oh, I just need to... And I was like, that is very typical in my understanding of how women approach clothes and what have you. It's like, I wanted to make it, it's pretty, so I'm going to wear it, even if it's not comfy. Blokes will not do that. If it's not comfy, we won't wear it. We don't care how much effort you've put into making it. We don't care how expensive it was. We don't care what it looks like. We will not wear it. Now, there are obviously exceptions to the rule. There are guys who are just as willing to put up with uncomfortable clothes as women, and there are women who are just as, like, I'm not going to wear that unless it's comfortable about clothes as men. We're talking generalities and trends here, guys. Yeah, let's just get that out of the way. Not gender stereotypes. I forget, because I know that I assume that, I forget that other people don't know that. When I'm blabbering away to you guys, I can't have someone go, you know what? So that I can go, oh, well, yeah, of course. If you get to know me, you'll realise, actually, I don't believe in anything being sort of, you know, all men are dot, or gender is a social construct. Yeah, that is my belief. Gender is made up. Like time and money, gender is something that we are so used to having as part of the way we see the world that we forget that we have completely made it up. That's not the same as anatomy, but even that is not so straightforward, guys. So, anyway, before I start to go off into gender politics and stuff, which I am not an expert in at all, and will probably say something stupid because I am a cis guy. So, what was I talking about? I was talking about this book, wasn't I? I don't know, how do I get onto gender politics from talking about this book? Oh yeah, because I was talking about the section where it talks about what men like. But there's a few notes in here about things like, you know, the guy that doesn't appreciate the sweater and doesn't be stupid with it, like... my mum knitting my dad a beautiful white Aran's cable work and all that sweater, and then him using it to change the oil in the car. Massive black stain. Yeah, I know you're cringing. I'm sorry for that. Safe to say she never knit for him again. And when I did, it was on the proviso that he learn how to handle a hand knit, how to wash and look after hand knits. And to his credit, he did. He just was ignorant. And Mum hadn't, you know, thought to, you know, make sure that he was aware of that kind of thing. So, you know, who's to blame, really? And there's a bit of that in here. It's a bit like, you know, if you're going to knit for a bloke, make sure that you knit to the level of knit-worthiness that he is. But yeah, so there's all those kinds of things in there, which is really pretty cool. And I actually find some of them helpful for myself because they help me focus on features and stuff that I like in knitting. So it helps me think about what patterns I might like, how to adapt a pattern if it isn't obviously made for men, but I really like a feature of it and stuff. So it's useful, and it's also useful if I decide to knit for someone else. For a sort of a garment or what have you. I knit cushions and stuff for my life, but that's not something I need to worry about what men like particularly. Especially if I can just go, here's the yarn, rub, rub, rub. Is that okay? After that, then, is the massive bulk of patterns. And apart from the crazy ones a little bit towards the end that I just showed you, there's things like hats and mittens, scarves. There's knits and crochets in there, so both crafts are covered. And then there's your gloves, and then it goes into sweaters and vests. So there's accessories for about 40 pages, and then sweaters and vests for about 75 pages. So there's it's a fairly hefty book. It's not a small book at all. And there's all kinds of things. So there's this kind of stuff. I love the picture of her not actually knitting that scarf. You know, it's one of those things where you kind of look at it and you go, yeah, you've just stuck your needles through the end of the scarf. But at least because she actually is a knitter, she's holding it like a knitter actually would. So yay! And she clearly knits English style. Or the photos in reverse. because the yarn is on the same side as her finger, so I think maybe it's a reversed photo and she knits continental style. A little bit of photo detective work going on there. There's some kind of crazy stuff like this. I would suggest you check with the man you were making it for before you make him that. Otherwise you might get a response of, what? Same goes for the aptly named Ernie sweater. That is not something that I think I would ever wear in public. But there are some really, really nice patterns. So I really like the high top hoodie. I really like that sort of sports look hoodie. I like hoodies in general. I want to make myself a hoodie. Oh, this is another pattern I really liked. Mixology. That's just a straightforward jumper, but I really liked the technique for getting the colour mottling and what have you. It's pretty obvious as a knitter, so you can probably reverse engineer that without me having to say anything. And then where's the other one that I really liked that I want to make for myself? This was before I could crochet. Oh, I forgot about this one. I like this one as well. There is an element, as always with me, of how much is it the model and how much is it the pattern. Yeah, I have to admit, I like the models. Well, I'm a human being. Come on, where are you? No, it's another hoodie that I really liked. And I can't find it now. That's my hold music, by the way, in case you were wondering. Jabba, jabba, jabba. No. I was about to say, I'm going to have to consult the index, and I've just found it. So it is the high top. Wait, no, I said that one already. Hacky sack hoodie. And I absolutely love it. I actually did start knitting this, but I knit it in a cashmere silk merino blend, which I now know has lots of drape in it. So you can imagine I knit a jumper's worth, put it on, stood up and was like, wow, this thing's hanging around my knees. Great. So I would have had to do a ridiculously tight gauge, and then the thing would have pilled to high heaven within 5 minutes. So that wasn't a good choice for this. And I recently saw a chappie on Instagram had made this. Can I give him a better shout out than that? I want to say Bear Knits, but bear spelt like the animal. I think that's right. Anyway, he posted a photo of himself in his hacky sack hoodie. And I was like, oh, wicked, I wanted to make that. So I was like, is it any good? How does it fit? Yada, yada, yada. And he's like, yeah, it's awesome. I love it. So I'm like, yes, I have to make this for myself. So after the Corridon, I think it was, that I talked about earlier, that I want to make, the hacky sack hoodie is in the mix as well. And I just need to sort of get my head around doing this long term over years as opposed to months. I'm like, I want it now! And kind of budgeting for yarn over that length of time as well, as opposed to just buying it all now and knitting it all now and getting really stressed and which you guys have seen me do a little bit. Such is who I am. Oh yeah, check this one out. I don't know what style they were going for here. Now, do you know what, actually? It's not that the knit itself looks bad. I just think it's a really weird outfit. Generally, I'm like, it's like some kind of weird 70s throwback that doesn't really fit the guy properly. But hey, that's just me. You guys might be sitting there thinking, that looks awesome, James. Shut up. I would totally wear that. Oh my god. And I'd be like, I'm sorry. And yeah, and just to prove that there is crochet stuff in here, because it was before I liked crochet, so I didn't really look at the crochet patterns before. No, before I knew crochet, before I liked crochet, what I mean is, before I did crochet, so I haven't really looked at any of the patterns to like them very much. But one that did catch my eye before I could crochet, and I thought, ooh, was this one. I quite like that. It's also got a zip and stuff, so that's a little bit frightening. Although, top tip for you, can't remember where I saw this, but somebody mentioned it. Getting stuff from a charity shop or thrift store, getting like a jumper from there, and then you can practice steeking. Cut this cheap jumper, steek it, add a zip. How cool is that as an idea for practicing steeking? And then if you actually sort of semi-like the jumper, but you're not worried if it goes a bit wrong, you can use it as like a house jumper or a garden jumper or something like that. Then you're making yourself a jumper as well at the same time. Awesome! So, brilliant suggestion there. Apologies that I can't remember who you are and I haven't given you proper credit. And I don't even know where to start looking to find that comment. So please feel free to shout up if it was you, and I can then add you. But yeah, so I thought that was quite pretty. And obviously it takes advantage of some kind of crocheting thing, I think, from what I remember. But I was reading it knowing nothing about crochet at the time, and I'm assuming it gives US needle sizes, doesn't it? In here. So because I think it's a US book. I have to check the knitting needles. Yes, US 9, so it's probably a US book. Yes, printed in USA, which means it would be US crochet terminology. Yeah, don't make a sweater as your first pattern and learn that lesson on that. That was a bad idea. So, Son of. It's got some fun stuff. I'd say it's quite young in taste. Anybody obviously can, and of any age can go ahead and wear it, but I think it's aimed at younger men. So it doesn't have those, you know, like your Argyle sweater as your, ooh, with men's patterns, and it's another Argyle sweater or another cabled sweater, and you're like, do you know what, people have been making them for hundreds, if not thousands of years. This is not innovative, people. So there's a slightly more modern styling and stuff, and there is, you know, there's cabling in there and what have you, but it feels a little bit more modern and fresh and interesting and funky to myself, which means, in my head, that means it's a bit more modern. Who knows, I might be a right fuddy-duddy with my knitting patterns. And if you want to check out the book and the patterns in it, it is on Ravelry. The book's in my library if you just want to go and find it that way, but you can just search for it. And most, if not all, of the patterns have project photos and stuff. They might not all have them, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see a photo of it or something, I can scan it and upload it, yada yada, whatever. Yeah, let's just check the time. Am I rambling on because I'm enjoying myself so much? It's just gone midnight. So I've been going for like an hour and a half now. This is going to be a long podcast again, isn't it? Because I couldn't stop myself. Don't record in 2 halves, James. You'll just record 2 halves of 2 hours. And I haven't forgotten that I got a little something to add on at the end. This was because I've been talking about sort of this distraction. I've posted stuff on Instagram as always, so follow me on Instagram if you want all my latest news and updates ahead of the podcast. But yes, I'm doing some DIY work for our cats. So there's something called catification, which is a term christened, as far as I am aware, by Jackson Galaxy, who is known for his TV program in the US, My Cat from Hell. I've watched that on US Netflix whilst I was in America, and not at all whilst I was in the UK. It's awesome program. I learnt lots and lots and lots about how to look after my cat, and I intend to go back and watch more of it again when I'm feeling less like I have to knit all the things now, which probably means in the new year. But, excuse me, we did actually buy his recent book that he brought out about catification, which is sort of about making your house work for you and your cats at the same time. And it's really cool. He's a cat behaviourist, comes from a history of having worked in shelters and stuff, and has lots of experience, really. There's somebody else whose book I've been reading, which is, and I'm going to get this name because it's so close to my friend's name. John Bradshaw wrote a book called Cat Sense, and I got that off Amazon, or no, Book Depository I think it was, for a few quid. And that's a little bit more academic. He is a scientist. I think he's an... Now, what is his? He did say at the beginning, I think he's an animal behavioural zoologist or something like that. So there's an element of behavioural analysis in his work, but he comes at it from an academic science based point of view, whereas I get the feeling that Jackson's stuff is much more intuition based. Now he gets results, so at the end of the day, more power to him. I don't want to sound like I'm discrediting him in any way. He is amazing. But they're two very different approaches. Jackson's is very sort of light in terms of it's designed to be really accessible. And John Bradshaw, is it John Bradshaw or Jack Bradshaw? I think it's John Bradshaw. It's certainly Bradshaw, isn't it? Yeah. Oh gosh. I thought about doing a book review for it, and then I was like, no, I won't. And now I just can't shut up talking about it. So I've been reading both of those. That one has like the evolution of cats, all about how actually, although all of our domesticated cats look really different, you think maybe they come from all over the world, they all actually come from one species, which was tameable. All the other cat species aren't. So it's really fascinating about how taming works in cats, how some cats are more tame than others, all of this kind of stuff, which actually when you start to look at, why is my cat behaving the way it does? Why are my two cats interacting the way they do? Why does one of my cats prefer this and one of the cats prefer the other? Which is really important for me at the moment because we've introduced another cat a couple of months ago. And it's not like it's awful or anything by a long shot, but they're certainly not happily contented just going about their own thing sometimes. Rory, my older one, will sometimes just go up to the new one. And bless him, he's only 5 months old and he's small for 5 months. He has been to the vet and checked out. He has apparently not got malnutrition. I did double check that because he said he's very small. I said, does he show any signs of malnutrition? Do I need to feed this kitten up? Just let me know and I will feed this kitten. As it is, we're trying to get them both to eat healthily anyway, so that's fine. As in healthy amounts. Like, eat more! You must eat more! It's the Irish in us. I tell you what though, if I go around to my Arabic friend's house, I eat until there is food coming out of my ears. I love. Mind you, she's half Irish, half Arabic. Libyan, I think. So basically, you get it from both sides on her side of the family. So she's basically just, would you like a snack? Thanks. So much food laid out on the table. Awesome! You know it's going to make me happy. I love my food. But yes, backtrack. Nope, lost the plot. What was I talking about? This is why I should not podcast in gone midnight. It's now technically Friday, guys. No, Thursday, guys. Yeah, that's a problem, right? Oh dear, and I was saying I was going to get it uploaded and published by lunchtime. We'll see. No, I think I completely lost that train of thought. But it was something about cats. How did I get onto the generosity of different nations food-wise? Oh, because I'm trying to feed the cats up, that's why. Yeah, I'd noticed he looked a little bit small, so I was trying to get him to eat more. But the vet didn't seem concerned, he just noticed. He said he is small for his age. I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, the eldest one, Rory, will sometimes swipe at Stitch for no apparent reason. In fact, sometimes he goes and seems to hunt him out just to have a go at him. And so obviously everything's not completely au fait. So I've been doing a bit of reading. They're both good books. Catification by Jackson Galaxy and Kate somebody or other. I don't know her particularly, but I think she's in some of his programs as like a design consultant. She comes in when just chucking some bits and pieces into the situation isn't going to work because it's too tight a space, or the person has a really strong design aesthetic, which is why they don't have cat facilities around, because they really don't want to. So she comes in when designing cat facilities is really key. In the ones that I've seen. So she obviously helps with design features in the book. And then I think it is John Bradshaw with Cat Sense, which is a much more academic look. But he's gone through the evolution, and now he's talking about sort of cat behaviour and stuff. And it's already, I'm only halfway through that book, and it's already, I've started to notice stuff about, oh yeah, Stitch is like that, Rory isn't like that, that makes sense, no. So you just start to get a breadth, and it's actually, that is another really good thing about both books, in the sense that they recognise that cats have a breadth of personalities, responses, features. They can still categorise them, they still offer you templates through which to understand them, but particularly Jackson Galaxy offers you, like, you know, is your cat a beach cat or a bush cat or a tree cat, and things like that, so you can kind of have a frame of reference to deal with them. But even with the more academic book, you can kind of start to understand, oh, right, yeah, my cat has these behavioural patterns and not these ones, and my other cat is like this, and da-da-da-da. So you can kind of recognise what's true for which cat. And they both treat cats as a plurality of personalities and so on. There's another book I saw in a recent video about an autistic man that has sort of massively adapted his home to have loads of cat pathways and stuff, which is just awesome. And he's got Asperger's, so he lives alone with his cats. And one of the things it showed on the video was a book called All Cats Have Asperger's. All Cats Have Asperger's Syndrome? Something like that. And I'm really curious about that book, because obviously I kind of think, well, I've said already, you know, I have some of these traits, tendencies, and it's like, well, maybe that's why I'm a cat person. You know, there's something about, I relate to cats. I also relate to cats' physicality as well. That's another reason. I love lounging on ledges. I love demanding attention by just sitting in front of someone and going, "Pay me attention." And all those guys. So I definitely relate to cats in many more ways. But there's maybe they're all very Asperger's-like. Who knows? I do not. But that's another book I'd be interested in reading. Right, okay, this podcast is just going to go on and on and on and on and on. But yes, so my little DIY project was introducing a cat highway, which is, like I mentioned in the video, is a little pathway that cats can follow around. So at the moment it's limited to just the one room. It travels halfway around our living room, so your cat can start in one corner, go up to the next corner, and then down to the next corner, which is pretty cool. It wasn't too expensive, actually, the bits and pieces for it. I think we spent about 60 quid in total. Maybe a little bit more. Now I think about it, I can't remember. But anyway, it's something like that as a bit of a proof of concept. So it's pretty rough. Rough and ready, but I thought I'd show you guys a video of what I've been up to. And I was very pleased because you get to sort of see it in use-ish. But I promise you, it does actually get used properly, which is great. And the idea behind this kind of thing, if you're not a Catification and or Jackson Galaxy fan, is you provide different routes around the same space. So that if the cats want to travel around and explore the space and mull about and kind of like purvey over their terrain, they can both do so without getting on top of each other and having sort of territorial spats, feeling like, oh, I'm trying to survey my territory here. Survey, that's a purveyor? There's something about, I don't know. It's too late for me to try and work out stuff like that. So Stitch loves to go up high a lot more than Rory seems to. So Rory will lounge on a beanbag or something to own the space, and Stitch will go and sit up high and look down over us and own the space. And the idea is you want both cats to feel that they can own the space along with you and each other. So it's multiple owners of the space. Which isn't a contradiction if you think about how you and someone you live with both own the space. It's that same thing, but you involve your cats in that process. And they own it in a cat way. And this is one of the things you can do to try and make that easier for all your cats, if you have multiple cats, to do it. And indeed, just your one cat, if you have one cat who likes tall spaces. If you have multiple ones, it's good to have something where they can get up and down in different locations. And that just means that you don't have dead ends where a cat can get caught and then they have, you know, one wants to go down and the other's coming up, and again you're forcing them to butt heads, which just, you don't want to make cats have to do that. You want to give them the opportunity to avoid each other if they want to. So yeah, that's what I did. So next we'll follow like a 20-second clip after all of this rambling intro of a bit of my living room. So now you get to see 3 rooms of my house. You see my dining room. This is it's kind of the study. There's been Instagram photos of this room a little bit as well, where I have my stash and things like that. And if you come on a VKN, you usually get to see in that direction of this room because I sit over there when I VKN. And now you're going to get to see a bit of the living room as well. Okay. As always, guys, I love you very much. Thank you for watching. Do message, do get involved. You might get a random prize. You might just make a friend. And even if you don't do any of those things, thank you for watching. Random strangers who I have never interacted with. And I shall see you guys next week. Cue the video. So here's Rory, curled up on his chair, relaxed and enjoying himself. And then there's a little table, and a little box to get up onto here, and then, what's this? Hi, by the way. All the way up to the top. You can see the ceiling there, so that's how high it is. And then, oh hello. And then we keep going, and oh, it's a bookshelf with a cushion on top. And another bookshelf with another cushion on top. And then, oh, we've got to the end. What are we going to do? There's nowhere to... Oh, yes there is! Do 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 do. Doink! And we've gone halfway round the room. Oh yeah, and of course, bye!